I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first segment today is a public comment, and we will start with a special presentation, the unveiling and adding to the Kateri Bro Memorial Student Art Collection. So Superintendent, I will turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. This is a really special moment because it's the resurfacing of a very long-held tradition and ritual to honor a former superintendent who passed away. And we are just thrilled to be able to revive the Kateri Bro Memorial Student Art Collection and the recognition of the incredible artists in our district. So we have 2 out of the 3 of our winners for this, and I'll just share a couple of comments that we were so excited to add and announce the addition of these student art pieces as part of the Kateri D. Bro Memorial Student Art Collection, which was established in 1998. This dynamic and expanding collection of honors, this dynamic and expanding collection honors the life and enduring contributions of Kateri Bro, and who is not only our former superintendent, but also a school leader in our community, as well as a community leader overall here in the Issaquah area. Kateri Bro served the Issaquah community from 1971 to 1992. And in 1988, she was named Washington State Superintendent of the Year. And she did lead the Issaquah School District as superintendent from 1987 until her passing in 1992. And so I do see that we have friends and colleagues of hers who are still champions of her in her memory here tonight. And I appreciate your attendance to remember Kateri Bro, and so excited to recognize our 3 student artwork winners. A couple of things just to note about the history and the interruption of this very important tradition and ritual is that no artwork was actually purchased since we moved into this building in 2019 because that same year in 2019 to 2020, COVID hit. So we didn't have in-person space and time. And then these new art pieces, and you'll have to wait for the unveiling for the proper ceremonial moment, will be displayed on the first floor of this building. And if you have had a chance to walk around this building, you'll see the beautiful artwork pieces of the past that were selected and just show, again, the incredible history and legacy of the amazing creativity of our students in our district. A couple of other things is that these pieces this year were collected, and as part of our tradition, the National PTSA Artwork Celebrating Artist. It's called Reflections. And this theme this year was Accepting Imperfection. So that will make some maybe more sense when you hear some of the titles of these artwork pieces. So first, I'd like to recognize Ashna Kumar. And Ashna here on my left is the 5th grader at Sunset Elementary School. And the piece that was selected is called Uniquely Adorable. So I think we can unveil your piece and see it, if that's okay. And I know that Nancy Francis, thank you, Nancy, will assist with that. And then we also have working artists get paid for their artwork. And so this is beautiful. Ashna, we have a reward for your work, which is how working artists get make a living, which is they get paid for their artwork. So I hope you have a long future of also this. And I think, Nancy, I think are we having you come up here, or we can pass it to you? Okay, thank you. The next selection of art comes now from the middle school level. And we have Rashika Chinthakini, and you are a 7th grader at Beaver Lake Middle School. And the title of your artwork piece is called Harmony in Uniqueness. And we'd love to see the unveiling now of your artwork. Thank you. And Rashika, we have also something for you here. Thank you. And then we have Ananya Koimutem, and you are a 11th grader at Liberty High School, and the title of your artwork is What Makes Me? And you can unveil your artwork and we can see it and celebrate that. I think that all three pieces are going to make a beautiful addition to our office environment and will remind us and root us in the great creativity and artistry that exists here in the district and in your brains and in your hearts. I really found that this theme was just a really beautiful theme this year of accepting imperfection, and each of your pieces really speaks to that in some way, shape, or form. So thank you to our family members who are here supporting you as well. And we look forward to seeing where else you go in your creative endeavors. And congratulations. Thank you so much. And we appreciate you very much.
And if you'll stay in place, we're going to take one more picture. Yes, parents, you can take pictures as well.
We will pause for as many pictures are necessary because this is an important moment. Don't be shy.
Do the gauntlet of shaking hands. And when you're done with the pictures, we would love you to run the gauntlet and give us an opportunity to shake your hands and congratulate you.
This is also a picture moment for families if you wish.
Congratulations. It's a beautiful piece. Congratulations.
Beautiful. I love animals.
Beautiful piece.
Thank you. Thank you for that piece. It's beautiful.
Good job. Good job. Yay. Right, we're going to take a moment as we move the artwork out of the way. We really do appreciate seeing and experiencing the expression of our students. I appreciate that Issaquah does not frown on the arts. We really love and embrace the work that our students do. Thank you to the PTSA for supporting the work of the Reflections program. I know it is a lot of work for them to put together that opportunity for students. So thank you all, and thank you for being here. And you do not have to suffer through the rest of the meeting if you don't want to. I understand that, especially with younger kids that probably have work to do. But thank you for coming out. Congratulations to you all. And we absolutely love having your pieces hanging here in our building. And for those of you who are here to stick around, the next piece will be the remainder of our public comment period. So this is an opportunity for the public to comment on items not already scheduled for discussion on the meeting agenda. Just as a reminder, a public comment is allowed during specific agenda items that are scheduled for possible anticipated board action. And Director Mullings is beside me to remind me to give you the opportunity to speak before we actually take action, because it doesn't work if we do it the other way around, and I've done that before. So for tonight, these will include our sustainability policy second read, the monitoring results for life management and personal awareness, and our calendar and future agenda item topic, if you want to wait around that long, which will be very late. With that, I do want to open it up. I have 4 people who have signed up already for public comment. So I will begin there with Elsa Huber. So if you can, this might be your first time, you can come up, go ahead and give us your name, your school attendance if you'd like, which I already have down what it is, which is fine. And then you have 2 minutes.
Thank you for the opportunity to provide input tonight. I'm here today to address the recently implemented district policies regarding graduation stoles and cords and how it came to a surprise to me and my fellow ISD seniors that the decision was made to eliminate specific regalia. Over the past few months, we were told that specific stole units that have our ASB position on it, IB bibs, and a variety of other cords are not allowed this year, and we have received a patch as the solution. The hardest part about this decision is the lack of communication we have received. ASB presidents have reached out to the district and have received some communication about the reasoning behind this decision, and Skyline President Archita and I have continued to have discussions within Skyline. After being a part of these conversations, we have created a number of different solutions that we would be happy to share. I would like to point out that under District Regulation 3220A, General Standards for Student Expression, the quote, free expression of student opinion is an important part of education in a democratic society. Students' verbal and written expression of opinion on school premises is to be encouraged so long as it does not substantially disrupt or interfere with the operation of school. Wearing specific graduation regalia is a part of our free expression, but more importantly, it acknowledges the hard work we have put in for our community. I also feel this addresses a larger issue within the Issaquah School District, which is poor communication between students, administration, and the school board. We hope to see a graduation committee created for the fall with a well-rounded panel with a variety of perspectives. In taking your positions, you agreed to acknowledge and listen to our student voice, and we thank you for standing to your promises. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight.
Thank you. Next, we have Risha Adamalu.
Hello, my name is Risha Anamolu, and I am the current senior class president at Skyline High School. Today, I'm here to respectfully also voice my concern over the recent changes to the district's regalia graduation policy. These decisions were made with little communication to students, and they came as a big shock and disappointment. For many of us, these honors are not just accessories that we add onto our gowns, but they represent the years of service, academic excellence, and meaningful contribution we have put into our school. I'm very proud of all the hard work I've put in at Skyline in the classroom, in clubs, varsity sports, and most importantly, in my efforts as class president. For the last 3 years, many of my fellow classmates and I in student government have put in extra hours before school or after school to be involved in our Skyline community and create positive change. We work hard because we truly care about our school and the student body. And what we do is not easy, and I believe it deserves to be recognized for. Wearing these items at graduation is a symbol to our families, to our community, and most importantly to ourselves of the commitment we've shown throughout high school. By limiting regalia only to the GPA, the Thespian Society, and small patches for IB students and student government, we have significantly reduced the recognition given and unintentionally devalued the accomplishments of many of us who have gone above and beyond. Leadership and service should be celebrated and recognized, and graduation should reflect the full spectrum of all students, including and not limited to academic, artistic, athletic, communal, and societal achievements. With that in mind, I would like to ask what was the reasoning behind this decision and how did the district arrive at this conclusion? As well, what was the decision process to make this conclusion? Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Odin Harper.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me okay? Cool. My name is Odin Harper, and I'm a student representative in ASB from Skyline High School. So I would just like to point out, I am incredibly disappointed by Issaquah School District's policy recently regarding the graduation regalia. So I recently attended a conference over lunch with the district superintendent, and other ASB students, and we discussed how we plan to protect diversity, equity, and inclusion policies within the ISD community. And I assume the majority of us shared similar views, striving to uphold the key principles through allowing students to have fair representation like graduation regalia. I would love for our wonderful district representatives, staff, and teachers alike to please reconsider their recent regulation update. And I wouldn't like for my peers' achievements and my achievements alike to not be recognized. And I feel it is inequitable to limit that for all students who work extremely hard. Please gather student input before making decisions, and let's work together to break down barriers. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And we also have Archita Chopra.
Good evening. My name is Archita Chopra, and I am the current ASB president of Skyline High School. Building on what Elsa and Risha have shared, I would like to address the process by which the decision to remove graduation regalia was executed. No communication was provided to students or staff until multiple ASB presidents chose to reach out to their respective principals and the executive director of secondary education, at which point our request for an in-person conversation was not addressed. I was also curious to know why student representatives to the district were not utilized, or why a committee similar to Issaquah High Schools in 2019 was not reestablished. In the communication sent by the ASB presidents that was previously mentioned, it was replied that the district would like to, quote, ensure a common experience for all of the district's graduating seniors in alignment with the operational expectations of the district. From the district website, operational expectation number 2, treatment of people, states, quote, the board values the engagement of its students and families, and, quote, both students and parents should be kept informed of district policies that relate to their rights within the educational system. With this, I ask, how was this decision well informed if the people actively impacted by it were not involved? Equity and student voice are pillars of the district, yet we fail to see a clear justification for this decision. We request that this process be thoroughly conducted next year with a well-rounded panel with a variety of perspectives, and that this year, the recognition we've worked so hard for be restored for this momentous occasion. Our student leaders here today have brainstormed a number of solutions we'd be more than happy to share, and I would like to thank you all for offering the opportunity for us to speak here today. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more comments that were not mentioned initially? Anyone else, did you want to speak up for public comment, or is there any in the Zoom? So let's first in the room, second on Zoom. Seeing none, we'll close out public comment. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the approval of our consent agenda. The consent agenda is a meeting management tool that allows us to address several common regular items that come before the board that are required by law for us to address. And we are able to do that in one easy vote. Any consent agenda item can be pulled by any board member. Are there do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
I move the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next is the establishment of our regular agenda. Are there any changes to our regular agenda?
There are no changes to the regular agenda.
Thank you. So our first item on our regular agenda is the report out. There's a lot of report outs, and I don't know that I'll remember all the things that happen. A report out to the WASDA District Area 2 National Region North Regional Meeting that the board attended this on April 29th, and several of us managed that. Dr. Gallinger is a member of the WASDA board for the region, and so he also kind of ran the whole thing. So do I hear anyone that wants to report out? Director Coyne.
Guess I'll start us off. A few thoughts from our WASDA meeting. I think what's most important, and I know we've talked about this before, is the opportunity for us to connect with other school board directors, particularly here on the east side and neighboring districts. So that's always fun to see those familiar faces and share best practices. I think it's also important when we think about our own development as board directors. This is really training for us to come together and spend that time going through those WASDA sessions. So that also was great too. And then lastly, I would just say, it really helped. I think key takeaway for me is brainstorming with the group. They had some wonderful discussion questions that they posed to all of us. And I think the biggest takeaway was us kind of collectively talking about how we engage the community, how we listen, and some good best practices that were shared. And I appreciate Superintendent Tauyuk joining us too. We had a couple of superintendents. The superintendent from Bellevue was there as well. And it's always great to have superintendents and other district officials in that space with us too. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Taylor.
Yeah, my first comments echo what Director Coyne said. It's fantastic experience for a thought exchange with other board members across the region to talk about common issues that we're all facing and to also just share ideas and approaches. Incredibly valuable, and to get to have a couple hours to have those conversations is great. The one thing so the event itself was great, but I also want to talk about the location of the event. We were in Puesta del Sol Elementary School in the Bellevue School District, and it is a school built with sustainability in mind and all kinds of incredible sustainability features built into the school, which I was very glad that the superintendent in Bellevue shared with us what those features were and all that. And it was very kind of thought-provoking for me if and when we get to the point where we're building new facilities to try to keep those principles in mind. Really a beautiful school, and the capabilities of it from a environmental standpoint was cool, for lack of a better word.
Sure. I think it was interesting for me. I agree with both those statements. I ended up at a table with folks who were either had been to the exact same session before or were facilitating the session. So it became more of a personal therapy session for the thoughts I had, and, group discussion of ideation and input. So again, super helpful. The topics we talked through, and it's great. I think I was sitting with folks from Seattle and not Highline, I think maybe North Shore. So a few other districts as well. So it's always good to get a sense of what's happening, what other school board directors are experiencing, what they're trying, their successes, maybe shared challenges as well.
Okay. Thank you. Anything, Director Gallinger?
Thanks for attending. I thought it was a good convening of almost every school district from the north part of our county. And I think there's so much more we have in common than that we don't. I think it's a good reminder, especially as we had just ended the legislative session, that the work there is never done. And I think the word I would leave from session is disappointment. And it's a reminder that we have more work to do together. So as you look ahead, while WASDA no longer sponsors a fall meeting, we as a county has done it historically before, and I anticipate we'll do that again this fall in hopes of organizing collaboratively on how we're going to approach session and doing our advocacy for education funding that we very much need.
I also enjoyed being with my colleagues. I think I was pretty stunned that Sandy Hayes and I from North Shore and I were the longest serving board members there. So that really takes me back to how long I've been able to collaborate, but it was still good conversation. I also appreciated hearing about the dual language program that Bellevue has really done robustly for decades now, and just where that takes us and our opportunity after, as we're wrapping up year 6 of that, and where do we go from here? So was definitely an enjoyable time. So with that, we'll move on to the next opportunity we all had to be together, which was the Nourish Every Mind student. Oh, I'm sorry. Because you were there. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciated being in that space. It was great to, have Issaquah so fully represented at that meeting. agree that the unique aspects of the building program for dual language combined with all the sustainability features. I think that what was noticeable to me was that there were sustainability features, individual sustainability features at lots of different buildings, but this building brought together all of the efforts with sustainability to be a better steward of our environment and footprint. So that was great. And I also just say that the topic was leading with purpose, which I think recentering in a time that's really crowded with lots of different things right now in the news and what's happening. It was just great to hear that kind of conversation and use that as a moment to recenter on leading with purpose and focusing on student outcomes. And I appreciated that conversation. Oh, and there were also State Board of Education members there too, which I think was also good for the State Board to hear and be in conversation with school boards.
And Peter Mayer from the Puget Sound ESD was also there, which was great. Okay, so now we will report out on the Issaquah School Foundation's Nourish Every Mind Student Showcase. We were, I think we were all in attendance. No, Dr. Gallinger wasn't able. You had a busy week, as I recall. But it was a great opportunity for us to hear from students. I love every chance we get to hear from students and how our partners in education help support our work. So we know that we don't do all of this work alone and that we have great partners. We saw it earlier with our PTSA and the Reflections program and all the art program that they do, the art docents in our schools. And then in this case, the Issaquah Schools Foundation, which has been a true partner for decades, and being able to hear how things that they help fund that we wouldn't necessarily be able to do and how it's impacting students. So any chance anyone wanted to speak on that? Director Coyne?
Sorry, I'm going to repeat myself on a few things, but when the Issaquah Schools Foundation comes up, I talk a lot on this one. I was on the board for many years, so it's an organization that's near and dear to me. But just some things that I want to highlight. One, wonderful event, as always, this year. The last I heard, they raised approximately so far $300,000 towards their goal of $350,000. So they're close to meeting that. I know they've got some other sponsorship dollars coming in and are hopeful they'll be able to reach that goal. I think I've mentioned this before, and this is where I'm going to repeat myself, but I think it's important to repeat myself on this. But the Issaquah Schools Foundation is unique to the Issaquah School District. If you just live in the Issaquah School District, you will think, oh, every district has a foundation. No, not every district has a foundation, and not every district has a foundation that is active as ours has been. As Director Meraldo said, it has been with us for many years. It was formed 38 years ago and has raised over 30 million for its mission. It's been a model for other school foundations across the country. As we heard in for Nourish Every Mind last week, so many of the programs, the school foundation has been an incubator for those, and then they're taken on by the district. So it's this great opportunity for us to do, for the foundation to build creative programs that and be unique in some of the things that they're doing and test them out before the district takes it on. So I just wanted to note that. And I think it's also important to note, particularly for those that are newer to the district, if you've been in the district post-pandemic, the foundation looks different. The foundation needs our support at its height in the 2016-2017 school year. The foundation raised just over 2 million. The foundation now is under 1 million in terms of what it's raising. It's struggled post-pandemic. It's coming back up. But again, I want to just make the note that it's important for us as a community, as we talk about so many organizations with PTSA as well. We need members of our community to be engaged, both in terms of funding the foundation, but also the foundation's always looking for wonderful board trustees. It's a great organization. If you're thinking about engaging in some form or fashion, I would highly, highly recommend it. So again, sorry, I'm repeating myself, but it is extremely important organization and so unique to school foundations nationally. So those are my thoughts.
Anyone else want to share? Director Mullins.
So the only thing I will add is we get to hear from students who are directly benefiting from the program. And so for me, not having any kids that were in robotics, I have to say I'm really excited about it. And I want to figure out like, can I go to a tournament? Is there a draft? I was so excited about the team names and everything. So I have to figure out how I can get involved in this whole robotics thing because they were really jazzed up. So that was my takeaway.
I believe this event is such a great, again, back to rituals and routines that we have as a district and community. It was such a great way to continue to showcase our students and the impact of different programs and investments from donors in our students' learning experience. And getting a 6-year-old to speak and talk about the things that are important to her is priceless. So seeing all of our students be able to show up and show their best selves was incredible. And the last speaker, actually, the student just really brought many of my table mates to tears based on her personal journey and story. So yeah, it was beautiful.
So, well, thank you. Thank you for taking your time and for your continued support of one of our great partners. Next, we have a recap of the work study that I will remember a lot more about because we just had it. But over the past couple of weeks, the board has had an opportunity to have listening sessions with students. And we do that just 2 at a time so that it doesn't have to be a public meeting for the students. They can feel free to share about what they wanted to share about. This year, our focus was on students who receive individual education programming. And so we had an interesting time kind of filling in the recap from that experience. So this afternoon, this early evening, we were able to share our perspectives of what we heard. And so I don't know if anyone wants to report out from our work study. Director Mullings.
Yep. So one of the things I think has been great is having a focus each year, doing some level of roundtable. This year was no different. I was able, scheduling wise, I could only do one of them this year. So one of our high schools, super impactful, awesome to hear about students all in high school, but talk about their experience across elementary, middle, and high school. And be really authentic and really clear about what had worked well for them, what their challenge areas are. So I think the conversation earlier tonight, what I leave with is, I'm glad to see that our administrators, our principals are dialed into those same conversations, that there are active works in place, that they're continuously looking at improvements based on those students' feedback, them and other students. And so, I leave encouraged that that we're checking in on all the different student populations and looking at how we can both surround them with the right humans for them to have great connections with, as well as the right operational processes. Obviously, that's a work in progress, right? It's a big ship to turn, but I think, I leave encouraged with that piece.
Great, thank you. Anyone else want to share? Director Gallinger.
First, shout out to Shireen and the team that put together all these student panels. I know it doesn't just happen out of thin air and coordinate the schedule. And just a expression of gratitude to our students who all participated. I think it's super important that we hear from our students every year. And, I was struck by every student talked about their case manager, and many referenced teachers that they really connected with that are really critical to their journey. I think I would echo what Director Mullins has said is, while we heard lots of things that are really working, we heard of lots of things that really aren't. And it's many opportunities for us to double down. And I know that our superintendent and Shreen have led a lot of process changes. So we were really getting hey, what had they lived through already and they haven't experienced the changes that our district has done. But I think we need to not lose sight of this because we want to make sure that it's having the intended impact so that there's a really tight alignment between what students' goals are and then their course of study. Because the last thing we want is them to be taking classes in high school that don't get them to where their next destination is. And then I think we need to somehow figure out how and when we build more opportunities for students to develop agency to be able to advocate for themselves at a younger age than high school. Because it was consistently heard our high schoolers, and by high school, they felt comfortable speaking up. Maybe our students here could resonate, but when they were 5th and 6th graders, like being able to speak up about their needs was much harder. And that makes sense to me.
Director Taylor.
Yes, also, I'd just like to express my gratitude for the opportunity. It was really enlightening to hear from these students' experiences in our district. So I was very thankful for that. But I will say, hearkening to what Director Gallinger had to say, I did hear that we still have disparate experiences. And I said this in the work study, and I heard each student tell a little bit different experience that they were having in the system, but also each student talk about a different experience almost year to year or class to class. And that's a concern. But I think a lot of it has to do with making sure that our students are being seen and understood. And the success stories that I heard were almost always tied directly to an educator. And I know we are doing more work in this space to be more deliberate in our training and our communication with our educators to make sure that we're, accessing, understanding, leveraging accommodations that our kids need. And there's great hope for that. But I do want to be frank that I came away from the discussion understanding that there's work to be done, for sure.
Director Coyne.
I'll echo the prior comments too, and want to thank Dr. Carver and team for their wonderful efforts in setting up these sessions and also the building principals at each of the high schools. I think one thing that I want to stress though too is just the key takeaway that I heard was connection. Love to hear the connection that our students had with specific educators. Every single one of those students that we listened to talked about teachers that had helped them through their high school career. And that was so wonderful to hear. In addition to that is the connection that they had with clubs, with ASB, with certain classes. All of them found that connection. And I think, again, it's just when you think about students at the secondary level, well, I mean, really at any level, but, particularly when I think about high school, since those were the students who were talking about, that connection is so important. And whatever that might be, where you have an interest, if it's sports or a club or student government. And so that was a big takeaway for me, because you could tell those students really made that connection to the success of their high school career being tied to that connection that they had with a specific activity. So those are my thoughts.
Right. Superintendent, did you want to share?
I want to echo my thanks to Dr. Carver and Tammy Unruh for their leadership in helping to support this, but also the building principals. But there were 2 team members that were consistent in every single one as well, which are 2 of our colleagues that work to support our students on their well-being, Miriam Corlett and Ryan McGlynn. So appreciate their effort, to be able to help support these spaces for what I would call sort of going deeper with a fewer set of students versus sort of the larger group settings. And I think that sometimes people will say there's a danger in a single story, but I actually would prefer to say it as there's power in a single story, because when we have every individual student and every single individual story has meaning as it relates to how their experience could be improved, but also how that can be connected to other experiences and where we might see themes and opportunities to improve. And while we're on a pathway to continuous improvement, we always know we can do better. So the power of the single stories that came up through each of those and reflected back to me and in the discussion was very powerful.
Yeah, I think for me, I would definitely echo all of that. I appreciated hearing the stories from students as a parent of students that were on IEPs, trying to differentiate what was and what is going to be. And so I think some of the students that we heard from we're in a system that had yet to change. And so I want to recognize that we are in a transition of how we're serving our students with special services in a different way, in a more meaningful way. But that because of that, it is incumbent that every teacher essentially be a special ed teacher, because you're a gen ed teacher and these are gen ed students first that happen to need accommodation. And I think that's how I would like to see them as students who just, they need accommodation. And so how can we support them? And I think that's a more supportive thing. Because I think, yes, I heard so many students that were talking about their connection with their teachers, especially at Gibson Eck. And, you know, there's a myriad of opportunities for them to be more connected with their advisor than at a comprehensive high school. But I also heard when a student says, well, I know my teachers hate me, but that hurts. Or when they say, well, I know I'm difficult to be with. I know I'm the problem. And I don't want them to reflect in that way. So I hope that that our teaching staff can hear that and receive that and understand that you have so much power in the classroom for these students to benefit them in a way to help them feel engaged, to feel appreciated, to feel seen and visible. And you also have the power to do it the other way. And so making that choice of can I be the supportive teacher? I think the other thing for me is much about the transitions of when a student advocates. And I mentioned this during the work study, is that what students experience when they're in elementary school with an IEP is their trusted adult, their parent, their guardian, advocating with another adult. And that's a whole different dynamic than we throw them into sixth grade and suddenly they're the ones advocating as a child with their adult teacher. And they're just having that amount of agency when you're 11, I think is asking a lot. And so I loved hearing from some of you saying, well, the issue is that the student is the one that has to initiate the use of their accommodations, or they have to be the one to step up and say, they have to identify themselves. And I think, so the work for our district is to ensure that the student isn't the one initiating that conversation, that there's teams, that the teachers and the students are teams working together for the success of students. So I think that is my biggest takeaway, but I do want to acknowledge that the district is moving positively in a good direction. And so this was a good opportunity for us to talk to students, and I hope in a few years you'll have discussions with students receiving accommodations and hearing a different story because they've lived a different story. And with that, we will go on to works in progress.
I do want to make a note before I launch into some additional things that are happening across the district, but some of you might have noticed a change to the board website and how we are posting the agendas. And really what we're doing is to ensure transparency, security, and compliance with state requirements and open meetings accessibility. Our district is planning to transition to a new platform to board meeting management. So this is something that the public will notice, and all the items, are housed on our website directly versus on the app that it had previously been on. And so that will serve as a temporary home for the meeting agendas and related documents. And we're also continuing to build our archive of previous meetings to make sure that we're meeting the retention requirement of the state's 6-year record. So I want to note that for everyone as well. I do have another important reminder on something that's important to share with the community, and is that we have had lots of different conversations, and I've shared a bit about the waiver process. And so the district did receive a waiver for one day of our various school closures that happened over the past year, most notably the bomb cyclone. And so our last day of school is now June 24th. And so each parent should check their individual school schedule for the details of that schedule. We've received a couple of questions about why the district did not receive a waiver for additional days or for the entire event that had occurred. And the reason is because in addition to compliance with the state, it's not just the number of days in the year, it's the number of minutes. And so we are We are in need of having a minimum of 1,000 hours for elementary, for example. And so, we sit right at about 1,000 hours with the waiver of that one final day that we had previously had scheduled. And so we're just at the bare minimum and we can't actually do less than that. So that explains that. On a programmatic note, last meeting I did talk about Career Kickstart, which is a new summer career development program for high school students to continue to access real world opportunities and to get exposure to the career and industry fields that might be of interest. We actually received those applications did close over 150 applications for those 50 spots. So that does reflect strong interest from students who are eager to explore those real world career pathways. The notification has been underway, and actually we did get back 48 of 50 students confirmed, which is a very high rate of confirmation back. So that means we went to the top 2 on the wait list, and we certainly have many more if those top 2 spots are not filled by those next 2 people. So this does, as a test and pilot, show the need. Right now we're conducting it in the summer, but we also are thinking about what we can learn from this to not only potentially expand during those break times, but also as we think about what we do during the school day and the school year. And a real special thank you, speaking back to our opening with the Issaquah Schools Foundation and Nourish Every Mind for their generous support in helping us to launch this innovative experience. And in particular, our staff teams across the district and Julia Bamba and Lisa Namers in particular at the district level. So many, many thanks to get that up and running and to take those lessons to the next level. On another note, with secondary and high school work, we are working with XQ, and as part of our commitment to improving high school experiences and post-secondary readiness, we're conducting an educational outcomes audit and analysis in partnership with the XQ Institute. And we've held some focus groups at all 4 high schools, each with over 20 participants. And we've just launched this week a survey for families, students, and staff to gather broader input. And we're using our transcripts to do some detailed analysis to get a better sense of the class of 2024 to understand their course taking patterns and academic outcomes. All of these data points, surveys, focus groups, transcript analysis will be used to inform student journeys workshops in June, and each principal will collaborate with a team of 10 people from their school, including students, staff, and families, to support reflection on this topic. And so we're excited about this. As a note about the survey, because that did launch this week, we're collecting these insights, and so we're specifically asking the survey that launched this week for high school parents and caregivers to take 10 minutes to complete the survey by May 14th, and the feedback will really help understand how well we're supporting a child's learning, identify areas of strength and areas of growth, and ensure that all students have access to the guidance, support, and academic pathways they need. So eager to report back to the public and to the board on what we find from all of these different data points. And this week, I've had great opportunities to witness student learning. On Monday, which was a wonderful way to kick off Teacher Appreciation Week, I met up with Directors Coyne and Taylor to visit Pine Lake and Sunny Hills. And it was wonderful to be able to talk with teachers directly and see our amazing students and staff in action. At Sunny Hills, we were asked several questions when we went to different classes as well. And what I thought was great is one student asked Directors Coyne and Taylor, "Are you helpers?" And I mean, at the end of the day, we're all helpers. So it was a really great question just to be asking, because it just so perfectly summarized that all of us as adults, like in our system and our different roles, are there to be helpers for kids. And so I think I didn't say that at the time, but I think I would, if I had a redo to go back and answer that question, I would say, yes, board members, we're all helpers for you in your learning journey. So I thought that was a great question to reveal how our students think about all of us as adults supporting them. On Tuesday, our cabinet executive team continued the great work of our equity instructional walks, and we visited Grand Ridge. I would like to thank Jill Ravenscraft and Gary Aguilar and the whole team and what they're doing to focus on raising overall achievement, while also ensuring that all students are thriving. So those students who are not meeting achievement at the same level as their peers are having access to more content, more learning with other peers, as well as all the different ways they're adjusting instruction to be able to ensure they're reaching every single student every single day. And yesterday, I joined part of the micro school visit to the Gates Discovery Center, where students learned about the design process based on the Stanford D School model, and they prototype solutions in addressing public issues such as maternal health, vaccine distribution, and access to fresh milk in rural and less developing areas. Students were engaged and able to take real-world problems and consider how their academic foundations and creativity could be put to use for greater good. In closing, Teacher Appreciation Week is coming to an end tomorrow, and I have been so heartened to see the amazing signs, the food items, and the show of appreciation for our teachers from the family and caretaker community. And thank you, huge thank you to also our PTA and PTSAs for helping to organize this week-long days of recognition. So thank you to all of our teachers and all of our staff, but thank you to our teachers this week specifically. That's it.
Thank you. Yes, and Director Coyne did ask me, he's like, does the board do an appreciation letter? And I'm like, no, but we've never considered it. So hopefully in the future, we will do that because we really do appreciate that. Learning doesn't happen without our educators. So our facilitators of learning, as I love to refer to them as. So we do thank you. I know there's a set in the room, so thank you so much for what you do. And on behalf of all the teachers, we are so thankful. Next on our agenda, I'm very excited about this one, is our sustainability policy, our second read. So we're going to start with a presentation, and then we will follow it up with public comment and then board discussion. Yes.
Hi there. My name is Matthew. Here in person this time. It's great. So based on feedback from the previous board meeting, we made some additional adjustments to the vision statement of this piece to emphasize what the so what of the whole thing. So because we have several different breakdowns of what it looks like and within the operations of the district, but there was missing the so what piece that Director Mullings had mentioned out. And we had suggested one, but there's several examples of potential model lines that we could use for a vision statement, as well as in 17.4, we had a slight grammatical change, and those were the only changes from the previous draft.
Great. So I'll open it up at this time for any public comment in regards to our proposed OE 17 sustainability. And is there any online? Any in-house? Okay, great. Thank you so much. So I think they're staying up here for questions, but then what I'll do is I will move for a motion or ask for a motion. Well, so what I would say is that we probably will do a motion as presented and then need to amend the motion with the value statement or vision statement that we would want.
I move the board adopt operational expectations 17, sustainability as presented.
Second.
Okay, having a motion and a second, we'll open it up for discussion. And the first one is, what do we think about the three proposed statements for the vision? Director Taylor.
Well, I just need a point of clarification. So we're to pick one of the three. These are three options being offered because I read them in the totality.
Well, it could be. The motion right now is that it's
Okay.
in totality. So
I
unless
would
you make
prefer-
any changes.
I would prefer brevity, and I will offer an opinion in a second. Well, I'll just say I like the first statement very much, as I think it's clear, concise, gets to the point. And I really like that phrasing about modeling sustainability for the district as well. So that would be my preference.
Okay. Director Mullings.
I went with a combo of choices that are here. I do like the piece about modeling responsible citizenship, but I think it was also important to get to the reducing environmental impact. Like that's what we're practically doing today. So what I would offer is that the second phrase in the value statement would be, we aim to reduce our environmental impact and model responsible citizenship by embedding sustainability into every aspect of our work.
Yes, Director Coyne.
The one on the second statement, it's true, I do like the first statement, but I like how on the second statement it says future ready district. I like that wording. I don't know if that could be included somewhere, but that did stand out to me. That's my initial thought.
And Director Gallinger, can you give us a fourth choice? So I'm wondering, Director Mullings, if you could make your statement
So it,
and slow enough for me to type it out.
yeah, and it sounded like if I heard the other feedback properly, Director Taylor, you liked the piece about modeling, if I'm saying the right person, the right time. Director Coyne, you appreciated the future ready district. So here's what I want to offer is that we would end the first sentence with the clause, it says capital projects and programs are essential for a future ready district. And then you guys can tell me what you think about this. If the second one is too long that I offered, let me go back to where I had it written, is we aim, we could, play with that. We aim to reduce our environmental impact and model responsible citizenship by embedding sustainability into every aspect of our work.
Okay. So I see some head noddings. Does anyone want to make an amendment to the current motion?
Was that, I wasn't, was that, were there any other changes from what I just said?
I think there were pondering looks.
Is pondering good or bad? Let me try. Give me 1 second.
Is it possible to read it one more time?
I will.
Okay.
Let me read it one time and then I'll do the amendment. Okay, so the whole statement would be the board believes that integrating sustainable practices and fostering environmental responsibility in all district and building operations, capital projects and programs are essential for a future-ready district. Second sentence is we aim to reduce our environmental impact and model responsible citizenship by embedding sustainability into every aspect of our work. How does that still feel head nodded?
I
Yep.
think so. Would
Yep.
you?
I like
I can.
So you're offering that as, that's your motion, I amend.
Yep. Do you want me to do all in the amendment? Because I can, if you'd like.
You can. if you'd like.
Okay. I would like to amend my previous motion for the board value statement for OE 17 to read as follows. The board believes that integrating sustainable practices and fostering environmental responsibility in all district and building operations, capital projects, and programs are essential for a future-ready district. We aim to reduce our environmental impact and model responsible citizenship by embedding sustainability into every aspect of our work.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussions about the amendment? Do our student reps or students like to comment?
Superintendent Tayek, did you have something you wanted to add on there at the end? Sorry.
I was going to bring the board back to, I think, prior discussions, even before I came, on the use of the word citizenship in the various different results and ends in even other areas. So I believe the citizenship refers to a specific type of individual in our community, and that might not be as inclusive. Is it citizenship in terms of stewardship, or is it citizenship in terms of citizenship in this country?
I like stewardship there.
So I hear an amendment to the amendment to change the word citizenship to,
Sure. Yeah, but let's see if there's any other comments for a minute. So any other thoughts or comments, students, all students, types? We have thumbs up from Milo and a smile from Nilla. We changed citizenship to stewardship.
stewardship, thank you. Did not remember.
So we should vote down that last amendment
No, you just amended the amendment.
and my amendment?
Friendly amendment?
It's fine to do an amendment. So are you making a motion to amend the word citizenship to stewardship?
Not really. I just wanted to be a friendly amendment.
Yes, that is what we're doing. We're making a friendly amendment to make that
No,
change.
we're
from
making an
citizenship.
amendment to
I
an
move.
amendment.
I
Thank you.
move to amend the prior amendment and to substitute the word stewardship for citizenship.
Thank you.
Is there a
Second.
second? Okay. Now we have an amendment to the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment to the amendment say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so now it has been properly amended. Any other comments on the amendment to this? Are there any additional amendments to the rest of the body of the sustainability plan?
Would love to hear from these two students. Is that something that you could live with?
Absolutely. So yeah, Matthew, again, I think I love the phrasing of future ready, just because I think that really encompasses a lot of what we're trying to accomplish, both from an environmental perspective as well as financially, as well, to make sure that we are have an eye on the future, which this district does, and it provides a great model for that. And I think that the following sentence really encapsulates all of the below points of how we are summing it up to lower our environmental impact and help grow students into being responsible members of society. So I think that's great.
And I just would like to add that I really appreciate by embedding sustainability into every aspect of our work, because that's truly what sustainability is it's an ongoing thing that we're all learning about. We're all learning how we can improve based off of the resources that we have, and utilizing that and putting it in as like a blanket over everything. Rather than it being its own standalone thing. I think it's really important that it is just kind of a thing that is in our lives, and it's really cool that we've gotten to this point.
Great. And then Milo, did I see you looking to speak? I think it's on. It was on. It'll take a second. It'll be fine. Go ahead now.
Is it on? Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. Oh my goodness. I didn't really have a comment on like those specifics, but I just want to say that I really appreciated you guys all coming together and giving your favorite points of each like sentence that they gave us. I thought that was really wonderful and showed just a great example of collaboration to me and obviously all the students. And I just wanted to appreciate Zoe and Matthew for all their hard work throughout the past years, getting this to the point that it is at and continuing to make headway on this even as they're reaching the end of their senior year. So that's it.
Right. Okay, so we are going to now vote on the amended amendment. So all those in favor of the amended amendment, oh, did you?
I just want to say, can we spend a couple minutes sort of debriefing the process after we do the vote?
Absolutely. So because we're just voting on the amended amendment now, and then we'll vote on the whole body of it. So all those in favor of the amended amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The students are like, I don't even understand just what happened. Okay, so now we have the whole body as amended. And we truly appreciate that. So yes, we do want to speak to policy as a whole. This is a brand new policy. So this isn't us just updating it, it's that brought this forward, Zoe and Matthew, and I know you had other teammates that part. But no, the work that's gone through, there's been many iterations, just even understanding how do you even make a policy in the Issaquah School District. So there's been a lot of work. Our student reps have also been involved in some of this work, I believe, working that through our board members to really kind of guide a policy. So those have been a lot of work that has gone through, and I do want to open it up for the board members to speak to the whole policy and to the process by which we got here. Director Gallinger.
I guess I'd like to first have our students be able to go first on sort of, it's been a long journey, probably longer than you thought it would be when you embarked on this last spring. Glad to see it coming to fruition shortly. So I'd love to hear your feedback on the process, your experience in navigating it, and sort of what tips you would give for future students.
For sure. I just want to say how grateful I personally am for all the support that the district has. When we came to the district, we didn't even think we were being able to get a meeting with you guys, but it was just like open doors of being able to directly communicate with board members. And it wasn't like, like, oh my gosh, you guys are like some untouchable people. You guys are real people, and you guys are really, really cool to get to know. And so it was really cool to be able to sit down with you guys and be able to go and just like line by line through this and really take what our like passion is and what our direction we're hoping to head in and put that into actual concrete language that is actionable for the district. And so I think this has been a phenomenal process, and probably over a year and probably more than a year before that of us doing research on other districts and other ways that we could do this strategically within this school district. So I think it's just been phenomenal to be able to work with all of you guys and to be able to ultimately have this come to fruition. And I think this will be really just a pillar, hopefully into the future, that can guide our district and to continue doing the great work that you guys are doing.
Yeah, and just to add off of that, me personally, I started working on the very, very, very beginning of the research and understanding different policies from all over the United States. Back in the summer, right before my junior year. I don't know how long that has been at this point. It's felt like forever, but at the same time, it felt like it's gone by so fast. So getting to this point, I'm just overwhelmed with happiness and just appreciation for everyone that has helped us along the way, because we definitely could not have done it on our own. And we definitely didn't think that we were even going to do this much. We were like, oh, well, let's just advocate for something. Let's just say, hey, we would like to see this, and maybe, they'll do something. And then we were like, oh, well, let's just go ahead and write them an example one. Oh, let's go ahead and start making those first drafts. Let's start shifting that. And while it's much easier said than done to take what we originally had of, I think, around 3 or 4 pages and condense it down into 1 page and still get that same message across, I think was really cool. And just a really great overall experience for all of us students to be able to see how the world works in a different lens. Not everybody is going to be able to experience this at such a young age. I mean, I'm still 17. My birthday, I haven't even turned 18 yet. So being so young and having this experience, I think is absolutely amazing. And I'm so excited to utilize this for future work when I graduate from UW. So, all right. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Any other student reps want to speak? Naomi.
Good work.
Okay, with that, we have a motion. Oh, you do?
I do want to say one thing. Director Quinn and I had an opportunity to connect with the board student reps this week. And one of the things I was struck by in that conversation and just asking, I think Director Quinn asked them, like, well, what do you think of this experience? And I think I was struck by the descriptions in a way that was very casual in nature. And so what I want to leave you with, same as I did the student reps, is you are now policymakers. You are not, this isn't some project you were working on, right? You've advocated in your own local government. You have advocated with elected officials, and you have made policy that is resume building. And you said not very many people, adults can say that. So I want you to be incredibly proud of that. And I want you to not forget how deeply impactful that is. Everything you went through, the revisions, the advocacy, the research, those are real skills and differentiating. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Don't know if maybe, at the bottom is when we put where we adopt it for the first time and then we monitor the first time. Maybe this one does require a special footnote where it says initially authored by, because it is going to be a policy that lives in memorial, and to just really highlights their work. So that would be my only addition. And then I would just do the connection because I'm not sure you were here earlier, but we had a meeting at Bellevue School District in Puesta del Sol, and it was really incredible to be in a building that generates electricity. So to see the possibilities that exist nearby, and how it impacts, and they believe it saves roughly enough to hire an extra staff member per building for the efforts that they do. And so that's the impact, because that's what it's about, is how do we drive change to better serve our kids. So I would just say that I am super proud of the work that you guys have done, and our students never cease to amaze me. So thank you.
Right. Okay, Director Coyne.
I just want to offer some quick thanks, and glad that Director Mullings mentioned what she did because that was on my mind. Thank you, because this is big work that you did, and I'm just so proud of you and the other students that worked with you. And I think it's one of these things, once we formally pass this, I think we need to pause and big round of applause for our students. This is big. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I want to say I'm proud of you too.
Great. With that, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? I didn't think so. The ayes have it. Great. Thank you so much. And yes, breaking our own protocol. Oh. Yeah, so maybe we could have a picture in front of the policy. Absolutely. Let's have one with them, and yes, I'd love for the board to join them and the student reps and the superintendent. Okay, stay there. Fast. Thank you. Congratulations. Awesome. This is some of the great work. Some things take a long time to get through and get initiated. And so we thank you for your perseverance. And now, Superintendent, you have yet another operational expectation for your staff to monitor, but I think it'll be good work. So next on the agenda is a technology update. And I guess we'll turn it to you and your staff.
Yeah, so this is a important topic. Technology is ever present in our lives, and it's ever present, but also omnipresent. We don't always see the ways in which it's working into our world. So this is a very important update at this time of the year to make sure that we're, reflecting on the things that we're doing, but also preview some of the ways that we need to shift for the future as well. So I will turn it over to Martin Turney, Rich Mellish, and Diana Eggers, who will present here. And I think it's timely because we have been reorganizing our work to make sure we're more effective at both being able to set the course for how we use technology and information to be better stewards, not only of our taxpayer dollars, but also to increase our customer service internally to ourselves as staff members, and also to our community, and then enhance learning experiences for our students, and to be really thoughtful, as they already are, about how to navigate this digital world.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent. So we're here today to provide this update, talk a little bit about the Technology Advisory Committee, share some feedback about the one-to-one laptop initiative, talk a little bit about artificial intelligence, and then kind of give an update on some training, levy preparation, some other things that are going on right now in technology. So I'm going to let Rich walk you through some of the tech committee information.
Great, thank you. Planned and facilitated by Director of Educational Technology, Diana Eggers, the Tech Advisory Committee was convened last spring and this fall. Staff, students, and community members provided feedback and suggested priority actions in the 4 goal areas of the ISD technology plan. This valuable feedback has impacted and informed ongoing efforts for improvement. I'm not going to go through them specifically, knowing that you had this ahead of time, but we are here to answer questions about the Tech Advisory Committee as we go forward.
Did want to highlight some things recently in terms of network capacity. We were able to increase the bandwidth at the 3 high schools recently, which is going to be, helpful in terms of things like testing, where we have great reliability, important in that area. We want to double the main internet bandwidth. We are ready to do that. We're just waiting on the K-20 network folks to resolve a little issue they're having, and then hopefully we'll be able to put that into place. Also testing a more modern and secure way to access Wi-Fi in the district. So 3 things that'll improve how we're doing things in the network capacity range.
Right, and we continue to use observation and feedback to monitor the student laptop allocation and one-to-one program. Using learnings from the feedback, it informs supports and improvements in future planning and ensures equitable access and universal access to technology for learning. Here we provide a sampling of 3 insights from ongoing monitoring, but are here to discuss other aspects of that as needed. Right, and then the integration of artificial intelligence continues to be an emerging and important focus. This year has seen works to update regulations and provide staff professional development and collaboration opportunities, and to select AI tools appropriate for teaching and learning. We have engaged with tech leaders and educators around the state and nation, as leaders and educators everywhere are working to leverage and safeguard AI for learning and preparation for the modern society and modern workplace. It's exciting work, and look forward to conversation on that if that is what you choose.
Thanks, Rich. Some additional highlights. When it comes to security, we recently did a penetration test to see what we would find out, which is always good to do, see where your vulnerabilities are. We did have a server that was isolated and decommissioned as a result of this work, which was good. Our internal security was able to notice what was going on and react fairly quickly, which gives us a good confidence in terms of what we're already doing. Then we had some minor things that we'll take care of that were noted as well. In terms of training, we're going to keep updating our annual and ongoing training, particularly around the area of personal identifiable information. That's an important area. We want to make sure that we're safeguarding that information and limiting or eliminating the risk of any breach there.
Can I add one thing here, which is the terminology that is spoken about in technology circles is that it's not about if a breach will happen, it's about when. And I know certainly my mind was certainly thinking about this as Highline School District experienced a pretty significant breach at the beginning of the school year, which really they had to go completely analog for a long time. So it's a very important thing. We want to make sure everyone's information is protected, and we have to stay on top of that in ways that are outsized. And you don't see that work, but I want to pay attention to that as we move forward.
Thank you. Speaking of looking forward, we are in the process of realizing that our next technology levy is coming up. So we want to do the prep work for that and make sure that what we're looking at to put a recommendation forward includes the things that the district really needs in this area. We recently were fortunate enough to have some pro bono work done and have a technology audit with some recommendations. I haven't listed all those there, give you some categories, but we have started working toward accomplishing some of the recommendations. One of them being, the penetration testing. So that's an example of one of the recommendations that came out of that. Another recommendation had to do with making some organizational changes, particularly a chief information and technology officer to help unite all the technology in our system under one centralized leader. So we are in the process of doing those interviews now. We also, our director of IT infrastructure has recently notified us she is retiring. And so I wanted to take this moment to thank Kathy Croft for her many years of service, done a tremendous job, and we appreciate her. She's been kind enough to do a lot of work here in transition planning, making sure process documentation is in place. Obviously, this is an important position, so being able to do that the right way gives us a lot of confidence. And in addition to that, we have at least one already budgeted position that we want to utilize to kind of flesh out a business intelligence unit. This is some work that the new CITO and the director of infrastructure may be working on as they come on board. And that would give us some additional capabilities to analyze data and provide some data visualizations that will be helpful for the system. And so that's actually our last slide there. So do we have any questions?
So I'll open it up to the board. Director Coyne.
I have one initial question and appreciate the update and all the good work that's being done in the space. I guess one concern I want to go back to, and I know you addressed, is laptop quality. I know we had an opportunity yesterday to talk to the student reps around this topic specifically. And I think the question on, hey, if your laptop is not working, do you know where to bring it? And it sounded like most of the students do. But I guess, which is good. I guess the bigger concern is how many times do you bring it if the computer isn't working? Like what is the point at which it's retired and you get a new laptop? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think that's probably an individual conversation with the tech specialist in the building. They can assess that and determine whether or not it's in a place where they can make some adjustment to it, whatever that might be. But we're happy to replace those if that's the need. And so I wouldn't say we have a stringent how many visit kind of thing, but it's really about, we want to make sure that we get the right piece of equipment into the hands of that student. We've seen an increase in student damage. So, some of those things happen that you have a laptop. I also will say on the topic of just kind of the quality is that we have been hearing a lot less recently about the quality of the laptop. So I think a lot of the information about continuing to run the updates on your machines and things like that have really paid off. Yeah.
That's great.
Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Director Ballinger.
I would love to hear more about what the plan is beyond, establish a comprehensive AI implementation plan. I think I guess I want that fleshed out a little bit more. Certainly well before we go into our next technology levy, because just like I had concerns about handing a laptop to students, most of which goes underutilized in our middle schools still today, 4 years in, is like, what are we doing to unlock the power of AI for our teachers? Like, just saying like, oh, we have AI now. But like, what is the educational component? And how do we know that there's implementation and adoption with fidelity? So, it's across buildings, it's across departments. And then the other part is there's a lot of businesses that are doing it for like the operations of this building. So it would be, so how are we doing it to help us write IEPs? How are we doing it to help us do assessments? How are we doing it, in all these sort of different ways? So I think I would like a little bit more focus on that before we go to 2027, because certainly in this 4-year period, we're going to see transformational change that's going to happen long before this. So if we don't have a more robust plan in place, I would get concerned about there being a 4-year commitment, but to what? So like, maybe it needs to not be 4 years. We can't figure that out in more detail than just what was written, because levy planning, I'm assuming, starts in just a couple months.
It does.
So we do, so thank you for bringing that up. I think it would be at a step with also bringing on some dedicated executive leadership that has additional skill and expertise in managing large-scale, complex systems around technology and information, and bringing together all the components that we do have in a way that drives us towards exactly the things that you're speaking about, Director Gallagher, for both lifting up and alleviating the workload of staff, especially our teachers. I think that is the number one opportunity that does exist. But then also how we use it to create just better supports for ourselves to do things that AI can help us do with certain applications and so forth. So that is exactly our hope, is to have some pretty quick turnaround on being able to have some more details about how our plans moving forward could look, invite that conversation with others, and have that be certainly part of, in tandem with the technology levy.
Yeah, just if we have 1,200 teachers, I would hope that the people that have been pioneers and early adopters and champions of this can be part of that conversation, so that our teachers feel like it's something that's done for them, not to them. Because that's the feedback we continually hear, is like, we have the best of intentions, but so in this early planning stage, let us try and get that balance better, so we can make sure that we can hear from them on like, so we may have like, oh, there's a great technological solution, but it may have been tried already, and they're like, here are the barriers. In the same way, like in my industry, they're trying to push like AI scribing and AI like documentation. And well, you probably should ask the people who are actually doing the work.
Great point. That's certainly on my mind as well. And I know it is certainly on the mind of especially Rich Mellish and Diane Egger. So,
Director Mullings.
I actually think it's the next slide. At least, no, sorry. The pilots. Just, I want to make sure we pause there for a second, because I think some of the items that you mentioned are listed here. That wasn't my comment, but I just saw it. So I thought I would say I think if we'd rested on this slide, it might have been a little more helpful. So my comments are, I am very pleased to see the focus on security. I think it's very important that it is a when, not if, there's security breaches. And so that's table stakes in this whole, in all the work. You can't do any of the rest of it if you don't have a secure, dependable environment. I think for me, the staffing updates are really important. So Director Moraldo and I have just been working on our next version of our podcast. And one of the things that we talk about, it's not about technology exactly, but it really is a reference to facilities and the rapid changing needs for facilities in recent years, from having all the technology sitting in a broom closet in what was Holly Street years ago to needing to have a full data center. And I think that conversation is really important. It's just the rapid change over the district in the amount of technology to run centrally, the amount of technology required to deploy a one-to-one strategy. And so I think it's really important to recognize the recency of that kind of shift to being deeply technology dependent. So I think having the upgrades in bandwidth are critical. We're just underserved, and I think leads to a lot of the complaint about hardware. Hardware gets the complaint of many things. Bandwidth is usually one of them. So I think the staffing updates are really important because I think it's an acknowledgement that of what kind of brains you need to have in the conversation who are versed in a much more complex internal operating environment, but actually the external opportunities of where we can leverage technology, but also the threat landscape. So I just think it's really important, the additional or the rethinking of how headcount is leveraged, because not all of it's additional in this case. And I think it'll pay a lot of dividends to then help with the plan forward.
Any other thoughts, comments, or questions? Director Taylor, I can see you umming and ahhing.
Well, Director Gallinger and Director Mullins kind of summed up what I wanted to say, but I mean, I really agree that I think the IT director position in particular is a necessity at this point. We just simply do not want to be left behind in this space. And I feel the same way when we talk about all of the investments, but particularly when we're talking about levy planning around professional development for our staff, because, you know, I had the opportunity to visit some schools this week, and I was really struck when I was in the classroom. I'm going to age myself horribly here, but struck by the amount of technology in classrooms in the modern classroom today, when technology in my day was a piece of chalk and a blackboard. And I think, yes, and I think moving forward, working in the tech industry and seeing what is coming with AI, and the change is going to be exponential. And if we do not do as much as we can now and really emphasize this as a point of investment, we're doing ourselves a great disservice. So I'm glad to see all of this. And I hope it remains top of mind for the district at all times in all the work that we're doing, because it's the reality of the world we're going to be living in.
Yeah.
With that in mind, I wouldn't, Martin, would you mind just putting that slide back up again with the staffing positions that we'll be adding, the organizational updates? I think it's just good, again, for folks watching, listening to our board meeting, just to see these specific roles that we've just all talked about and how important these are for us moving forward. So those are my thoughts.
Well, I was going to have you move back to the other one just to be difficult, but to talk about the same thing, because when you look at that list, that laundry list of things that we're working on, it's 2 pages long, right, on here, because people will complain about us spending administrative costs. And it's like, well, I can't go and let teachers try to figure this out on their own, what the technology is going to be for students. I mean, teachers need to be able to spend their time actually teaching students and not determining all of this. There are the reasons for administrative costs. There are reasons for having a chief information technology officer coming in that can work and figure out all of the pieces. How is it going to be, what kind of tools are going to be necessary for students and for our staff, for our teachers in the education of our students, and then what pieces are going to be important for the managing of the district when it comes, this is just AI. And when I think, I'll go back to what Director Gallinger was saying with the one-to-one implementation, kind of my fear around all of that and our continued uses, how are we making those changes in the classroom to actually utilize them? And I remember long ago, again, my memory is now old because what my experience is, my kids is from a decade ago now, practically. But he was given a laptop his freshman year, and it was from ISF funding, the Start Strong program, and all the kids were going to get laptops. Well, access to technology wasn't his issue. Access to be able to utilize technology in the classroom in a meaningful way as part of the whole concept of the teaching and learning, it was not integrated. So he could bring a laptop to class, but it didn't make a difference because he didn't have it integrated as a tool in the classroom setting. So I still have questions around how we've done that through the development, as we work and tweak curriculum at the district level, again, administrative level, trying to do this for all of our schools, and then how we're helping teachers step up so that when students bring their laptop to school, it's used in a meaningful way and not just put in their backpack that's set down by the side, and then the person walking next to them kicks it because our classrooms are way overcrowded and there's no room for their backpack to have a laptop in it. I just integrated. And then the laptop has to be replaced. So I think for me, it's the integration. So I'm concerned about the integration of the one-to-one. And so as we move into AI, and they're listed on here are expenses. And my final point before I get to our students who have already raised their hands, my final point for the public is that the state pays for $0 for any technology. They're not paying for our technology staff that is doing that. They're not paying for the one-to-one. They're not paying for the overhead projectors that we don't have because now we have smart boards. I mean, I remember right now that stuff gets funded. That's what the tech levy is for. And so when I look at the things that we're looking at here, AI, plus if we want to maintain one-to-one, I think it will show up in what that tech levy looks like, and want to prepare our community now that's because none of it is funded by the state, not a dime. Okay, Naomi, you've been patient listening through all of this.
Yeah, I don't want to circle around this topic too much, but it's been mentioned a few times, and we do have teachers in the room and also on Zoom. I want to go back to your point, Director Moraldo, about letting teachers teach, and regarding technology and letting our technological staff figure what's best for what's in the classroom so our teachers can focus on their students. But given how much time and the impact AI and technology has already had in the classroom and across the country and just society in general, I know a lot of our staff and a lot of teachers around the country have already taken it into their own hands and gone above and beyond and undergone their own research and figured out what works best for their teaching style and their students and their classroom and their curriculum, because every classroom is different. So I think when we say let teachers teach, I think that's very important. And it's something that we need to let them do. But we can also give our support by asking them what can help them.
Exactly. And I do want to say that there's teachers also on the technology advisory committee, and that is important for us to have their voice in that committee. Krish. He popped in. He teleported.
I've been here. So my question really focuses around the student AI toolkit. So there's been a lot of discussion about the teachers and, helping them figure out the system. And so when I'm just thinking about new technology update, my mind immediately goes back to my freshman year during COVID, or my sixth grade year, sorry, during COVID, and learning how to use Canvas and the headaches both on my end and my parents. And so my question kind of revolves around, is there going to be any teaching for students? Like, how are they going to learn to use this technology? Not only use it, but use it meaningfully.
I'll start, and we have our Director of Educational Technology here to also jump in on that. And absolutely, I want to reinforce three things. It is a three-way partnership when it comes to things like AI. Absolutely, we need to create the spaces and vet the tools and to make sure that they're safe and protecting kind of the integrity of our programs. But we can't make decisions without the input of our educators, who can tell us whether the tool actually helps. And you're absolutely right. They have often gone ahead and tested tools that we're still testing as well, and can give that great valuable input. So that is absolutely critical. But also, students are going to be that third partner, because oftentimes our students have been experimenting with AI even more than we have. And so there's going to be ways that as we roll this out, having that student voice of what is becoming more intuitive to students. How do we help those who don't have that prior exposure get that so that they can have equal access? And then using our students to help us understand kind of what they need to learn more. And so that is really a lot about the professional development. We provide educators and prepare them to be able to teach the technology as embedded in the learning. So it's not a separate, but it's a tool for learning. Would you like to share a little bit about some ways that looks now?
Sure. Well, with the list here of the pilots, and you specifically talked about when students will be learning about technology or about AI, we have developed some lesson plans that our educational tech specialists have been doing, mostly in middle schools, with students on what AI is all about, how to craft a prompt when they're asking AI to do something, and then how and when they should use AI, especially as a student who's under 13. So we talk about the terms and conditions and where they might find that information. The colleague AI that you see up there, we have a number of teachers that are piloting that as a teacher tool this year. We had just a couple participate in the student-facing piece of Colleague AI. I think it was just 2 of the high school teachers. It's the Colleague AI student is in their beta version, so that's what they've been testing and providing feedback on. We heard from Colleague AI earlier this week that student-facing piece for older students should be available in the fall. So as we have different curriculums come on board, as we update scope and sequences, fitting that in to the appropriate curricula would be paramount. So working with our English teachers, working with our science teachers, where do they go and access the colleague AI, especially on the student side?
And then I have a quick follow-up question with the pilot specifically. So I'm just thinking through my current class and my current teachers right now. And so a lot of my teachers, one of my teachers uses one tool and the other teacher uses another tool, and so on and so forth. Is this kind of, for lack of better words, like a starter pack or like just a foundation of AI tools, or is this really like a end all be all? And what's kind of the nature of the pilots? Are they like things teachers have to use? Is it kind of like, oh, you can use them if you want to?
I would like to get it into the you need to do this piece, that this particular learning experience for your content and for your students needs to happen. Part of our reasoning for going one-to-one was to get beyond the pockets of teachers that are using technology with their curriculum and make that technology available to remove the barrier of having to check out laptop carts and all of that, so that teachers could more easily focus on the teacher's teaching, right, and not having to wheel a laptop cart down. So we're hopeful that teachers will see the value of this, and that there will be an expectation for students to have an experience using AI across many content areas.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments? Hava.
I just wanted to say I really appreciate this presentation because I think it is very clear and understandable about what the district has done to understand the current situation of technology and the way it's being utilized, and how effective it is in our district, and some really clear deliverables that we can look forward to, and seeing exactly what areas the district intends to implement AI tools and how it can impact and improve staff and student experience. I just really appreciated that. And I also wanted to say I really appreciated it helps to know from our last conversation in a board meeting about laptops, to know the worth of the laptops, to have some gratitude for the amount of thought that goes into the technology, and like Director Meraldo was saying, the funding that is put into our hands as students to just appreciate the gift that that is in our education and to look forward to new tools being implemented in our classrooms.
Okay. Director Mullings.
So I'm going to be slightly off topic, so it's not particular, but one of the things I did wonder as I was reading this presentation is, do we have a place where we're listing all of the various committees people can and are participating in the district? I think that would be incredibly helpful because we have so many opportunities for engagement, yet we still get feedback, no one listens. So I would love to just get them all in one place because there's a lot.
Funny you should ask that question because I was just having that conversation and with another team member. So we are actually going to do that, is show all the different places and spaces where people can be engaged and where they can also raise their hand with some timelines on when they run. They might not run every time, right? But they're at least listed to say this might happen on every 4-year cycle or so forth. So, or they're running all year round because that's where it's important to do. So that is forthcoming, and I'm glad that you asked that question.
Yeah, because we've asked it before, and there is that whole tab on our website that says "Get involved."
It's about also how the presentation of it looks and how it's accessible to others. So fair point, well taken. Thank you.
Just gonna
Director
say too,
Coyne.
I know, I just actually went to the get involved tab here, which it's out here, but yeah, I think stressing too, again, PTSA, Issaquah Schools Foundation, Voice Mentor. I think any way to get people, because there is an opportunity for everyone. And we think about, all of these ways to slot in. We think about the capital projects committee as well. And we have people with different levels of expertise and experience and engagement in so many great ways. So great idea. Have these on there too.
Okay. Well, with that, thank you so much for this presentation. There's been a lot of great information, and it really is something that the board is needing to consider is where are we at with our technology, because it is ever moving. So speaking of technology, there's little pieces of technology we all seem to be really tied to called our cell phones. So next on our list is a discussion around our use of cell phones, or student use of cell phones, I should say.
Yeah, so Dr. Dana Bailey will be coming to share about how the implementation of the level and then school-based, development of cell phone policies has gone, and some other topics related to this is news everywhere. People are considering all different things, and we want to make sure that we were honoring our commitment to bring this topic back up at this moment in time. And I'll pass it over to you, Dr. Bailey.
Thank you very much. So for this pilot year, the first step was to have a consistent message, and in all the student handbooks, there's common language about cell phone use, expected cell phone use, including smart devices, including the headphones that are Bluetooth. At the high school, this is captured as off and away during instructional time, which would include if you were in the hallway during class time, but then that would mean that before and after school, during passing time and at lunchtime, cell phone use would be acceptable. Gibson Eck is moving towards this policy, and elementary has an off and away for the day. For some schools, this was a big change, and for other schools, this was not so much of a change. And in all honesty, this has been somewhat quiet, with little or nothing that has risen to the level of Executive Director Cox or myself. But we have seen a spike in technology violations, which show up in our Swiss data as minors. So there is a spike, as we would have expected when we implemented a new rule. I did a little follow-up in the healthy use survey just to put on your minds that our students report a higher than state average excessive screen time in the healthy use survey. And I looked it up to make sure I understood it well. And excessive screen use does not include schoolwork or school time. So it's screen time for fun. About 50% of our students are at 3 hours or more per day. An element to consider in the future engagement with the community could include an engagement around community expectations that we build together about prioritizing in-person communication, community commitments to screen-free time, and adult modeling of cell phone use and other devices while youth are present. Next steps for our district leaders include determining where the cell phone policy should reside as a regulation or policy, and there are pros and cons to embedding it into the acceptable use policy, which students and parents see every year as part of the EVP, or in a regulation and policy similar to the WASDA model policy. We're super interested to hear how the students have experienced, if they have experienced a change in this pilot year.
Okay, so I'll open it up to students first, since Naomi.
I know I gave a technology report at the beginning of this school year, and during that presentation, I think I explicitly said that students were unhappy with the new ban on cell phones in classrooms. A lot of students were complaining and saying that they needed it to turn in schoolwork and do research, and for some of the classes like ASB and photography, I think it was also yearbook, said that they needed cell phones for some of the work that they do, and it makes it a lot easier to do their work. I want to go back and say, like, over this past year, though, I've seen all of these disappointments and like unhappiness kind of die down. This new policy has kind of become, I guess, the standard now. It's more recognizable that cell phones are not meant for the classroom during class time. And I think over my classrooms, that's become more uniform. There are like still different rules for cell phones in different classrooms. Some of my teachers require us to put it in like a cubby to keep it away during class, so we have it off our person. Some of my teachers just request that we put it in our bags or just keep it out of sight. And I will say that I think that's helped with keeping students engaged. I still think that cell phones are still something that we need to learn to use more productively in school because they're not going away anytime soon. But in terms of engagement in classes, I think that having cell phones away has helped.
Krish.
Very similar to what Naomi said at the beginning of the year. It's definitely very shaky. There's a lot of sort of discontent a little bit with the policy. But I'm just reflecting back on my freshman year, and there were a couple more phones out then than now. I just feel like it's that like kind of fear aspect, which is why a lot of students, comply and put it in their backpack and put it away. One of the biggest things though I've heard this year is like students asking, why is it just us that have to put our phones away? Why is it not a building-wide policy instead of just a policy on students? So why doesn't this apply to teachers and so on and so forth? And so I think that's just something to consider, and I've heard it a lot. But definitely as second semester rolled around, it kind of became like second nature. And so more people are saying get used to it.
Great. Nilla.
So for my school at least, I've barely noticed a difference personally, and for my peers, I feel like most of them didn't even know or noticed. As far as classes go, most classes tend to set their own expectations on how strict they are with phones and like behavior with that, as like Naomi was saying, with cubbies or just like out of sight or after instruction, it's okay to see them, kind of things like that. But yeah, that's my experience.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board?
I would just say I thought that we left it that by May we were hoping to hear a coherent district policy or plan, not everyone at the building level figure it out yourself. Because I think what we heard, at least what I heard from our teaching staff, was it's exhausting to have to decide how you're going to enforce it when there's not a unified plan. And then it's like, oh, well, here you're doing that. And then you're pitting teachers against each other within a building, potentially, or you're pitting buildings against each other. And then your just feeder patterns are like for all these ones in transition, like, well, why I got to have my phone here? Why do I not have it here? So I was really hoping and expecting by May of 25 because we wanted to end this year and walk into next school year with whatever we needed to explain to everyone, because you even heard from our students, there's wide variability. I know Skyline has no policy. Well, it's not no policy, it's classroom driven policy. That students could expect similar experience across our buildings, across the district. So I would just say that that's not what I'm hearing. And I think the window to do that now is closed for yet another year. And I wish we were hearing something different, because I think that we've been given pretty clear feedback about how important that is.
I'd like to respond if that's all right.
Sure.
I think if I wasn't quite clear, the policy is off and away during instructional time. And what I heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, for the student experience is a difference in the definition of off. So some teachers I think have the cubby that were originally designed maybe for calculators. Some is backpacks and out of way. And so that I believe what I'm communicating is that is the policy. We were intending to spend the springtime figuring out where we're going to write it down in a place that students and parents can see it very readily. But that is the uniform policy, off and away during instructional time for secondary schools and off and away for the day at elementary.
Chris.
I would like to just add on something that was said earlier. I kind of feel like district-wide, the expectation is pretty clear that it's off and away, but I do think that each building kind of having its own sort of like adaptation of that is kind of helpful, because of classes like Naomi brought up, right? Like that individual building administrator and be like, oh, this is a core component of yearbook. And so there's this exception. I know one of my history teachers prefers that we put it up in front of them so that they can see them, while other teachers want them away. I feel like the expectation is really clear, but giving the teacher the option to decide like how they enforce or implement that policy is a good thing as well. And that's something I feel like that's worked a lot this year.
Director Mullings.
So I think my observation is I get that we've set a policy. Where I tend to struggle is like, where am I in the change curve of any of these updates? I think it's normal and natural to I implement a change. Some will adopt, some won't. That's fairly natural. There's some level of review of that adoption, and then maybe it's additional training or accountability steps. I think this is maybe just an example of, are we operating in a planned change approach? And so this is a check-in, and we should expect that something else happens, like once we hear the variability, that something else happens? Or are we not operating with a structured change approach? And if that's the case, then I think it just speaks to the fact that I think we need to get one. So if we are going to have a policy, we should have a way to check if they're working, and we should have a way to adjust after. But I guess as I sit here, it's unclear to me whether these examples of variability are on purpose or by ignoring. And so I keep coming back to that same point. Like, the goal is to have consistent experiences. So how do we do that? And how do we put in place a way that we can validate it and adjust if we don't? This topic, other topics.
Hava.
I think something that is also important is that in Naomi's report, part of the focus was like, why are we trying to have less cell phone use? It's because of student well-being. And I don't know how you would do that in a way where students wouldn't feel like, oh, it's just like the SEL lessons, like, oh, it's just another, yeah, they're bad for my health, I know. And I don't know how you would do that,
but I think it's important, and you can't force students to understand something or to make it feel meaningful to them. But sorry, excuse me. I think that it is important to communicate, not just this is our cell phone policy, off and away, like do it, but also like this is for a reason. This isn't just because we find it annoying. This isn't just because you're distracted. This is actually about student well-being, and that is the focus and purpose, so that like not only can you learn, but you can have healthy practices as you're going forward, because that's part of our goals and results that we're hoping for our students, that they have healthy relationships with the technologies that they're growing up with.
Director Quinn.
If I can go back to Director Molling's point around the change curve and kind of operating in a planned change approach, I guess a question I have, so if the thought is that we're off and away during class time at the secondary level, it sounds to me, based on what I'm hearing from the student trustees and just what I know from my own students at Skyline, I'm not sure anything has been implemented this year. And from what Nilla said too, it doesn't sound like it has either. Is that anticipated to be next year? Because I'm hearing like at Issaquah High and Liberty, it sounds like there's a greater sense of what this looks like. And I think also Gibson Eck. But like if I were to go home and tell my students this, they'd be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And I think when we looked at that earlier this year, if I remember the two schools that didn't have, because each school had a relatively set plan. I think it was Skyline and actually Pine Lake Middle School, if I remember correctly, that did not, they had plans, but I think it was based on kind of teacher preference. With that, so what does that look like? Is the anticipation then, like particularly at all high schools, will we next year be off and away during class? Or is that, because I don't, or is the assumption like at Skyline that it's already been implemented? Or I guess, what does that look like?
Well, I'm not in the habit of making assumptions, and I can tell you that the stated policy is off and away during instructional time, which was a compromise with the young people about not locking them up in pouches, and with the parent community of having students have access to their communication devices if there were an emergency, and the landing on instructional time, like super clear on instructional time, including the hall when you're supposed to be in class, maybe have permission to be out in class. So that is what I believe the expectation is. And I take your feedback about perhaps inconsistent implementation. I can tell you what to expect out of us, the leaders from before the end of the year, was to land on where the policy might be visible to parents and students. And I'll reveal my thinking, our thinking in the EVP, in the acceptable use policy. That is something that students and parents are supposed to read and they sign every year. So that would be a time to put it in front of people all the time. A policy like the WASDA policy, which would be in the 3000s, might not be something that anybody ever goes to look for until they're unhappy with something. So that's the pros and cons we're wrestling with right now to see where it best fits about the expectation to put it into policy. The elementary policy of away for the day, we believe is developmentally appropriate.
That makes sense. Yeah, I think going back and just clarifying, I think at all the high schools, because I'm hearing it from our students today. I mean, it's varied. Like with Naomi saying, there was some rumbling about it at the beginning that Issaquah High, and I'm thinking we have some schools that weren't even addressing that, I would say. So I think having that consistency, because I think this, away and off and away for the day makes sense. And it sounds like that is the policy. I think we just have to make sure that that's consistent across all of our secondary schools.
Director Taylor.
I just want to ask a clarifying question. So is off and away the baseline? Meaning can schools, individual classes, teachers be more restrictive with the policy?
I don't actually know, but I'll have to get back to you on that. I know what I found in the student handbooks, and exactly it says off and away during instructional time.
Thank you.
Superintendent.
So in my mind, I think the change curve has been this year to see some of the more clearer expectations for use of cell phones during the instructional time, especially at the secondary level. I think that was the biggest part of where we are change curve-wise. That was a big change for many students, and that was evidence in how students experienced that in the beginning of the year as well. I guess I feel like we're normalizing a bit in terms of, where we are. And this might just be a matter of some communication components, which I'm hearing some very helpful feedback on. But even when I consider, Spokane had an article about them written about how they're away for the instructional day, but they don't use pouches. They just have the expectations that are being then, how that happens in a classroom can look very different, whether it's pockets and where you store them in a locker or a little location, or they're in buckets. There's different ways and mechanisms for doing that. I'm happy to make sure that every single teacher has the same method, but I also feel like it has to work for the teacher as well, and how that happens. So part of it's also we're already doing that work with having it away for the day, and so part of this also might just be a communication piece. So in my mind, we're kind of past the big hump of where it might be experienced, but I think that sounds like we can maybe bring this back for some further discussion, because I don't hear full resolution on this, and I maybe have to consult and bring this back to the board for some clarity.
One data point we could consider is the number of technology infractions that are minors this year versus where that might go in the future. So it's a spike. It's a lot. There's, I think at Issaquah High School, 900 cell phone infractions for this year. And if next year is less, that means the implementation is taking the effect that we want it to be. But that is a data point that I hadn't considered bringing forward.
Yes, Director Mullings.
What's the number at Skyline?
I don't actually know. I was just shocked at the 900, but I do have that.
I'm actually
information.
not shocked at the 900, and my hypothesis it'll be 0 at Skyline because we haven't implemented anything, and that's my concern. So Issaquah High, I have a kid there. I think we've made a bigger deal of telling kids to put their phone away than it actually costs. Yes, they rumble in the beginning, but everybody adjusts. What I want to make sure is we actually have implemented a policy at all the schools. And right now it sounds like we have not done that at Skyline. 900 Issaquah High actually isn't surprising to me. It's the number at Skyline I would like to know.
Okay.
And I'm on the website and I'm on the Pine Lake Student Handbook and there's not a word.
Yeah.
I'll find that and forward that to you directly.
Okay, any other questions or comments? I think one of the things that, like Hava was talking about, what is the purpose of this? And I think I'd love some more communication once we get where the policy is going to live. Because if it doesn't live in the 2 areas that you talked about, then it lives with us as board members. So the policy can be put somewhere. But I think communicating the why is very, very important. And it goes, to what Hava is talking about, student well-being, but also what our teachers talk about is I'm tired of teaching to the tops of heads. And that's true. I mean, for student achievement, for student success, they have to be more attentive. And I think cell phones were taking away from that. So, and I think being really clear that we do have 2 separate policies, one for the elementary, one for secondary, and that secondary, they're still going to have it at lunchtime. So it's instructional time and not put away all day, because that's just at elementary, correct?
Yep. And we would welcome the feedback from the school board and other vested partners about those 2 options, a WASDA policy that goes in the 3000s or the EVP that under the acceptable use policy where parents and students would see that every year. Or maybe it's actually both, but both are policies and we're happy to respond.
Great, thank you. Okay, with that, we are on to our next item on the agenda, which is the monitoring report, our 4 advanced notice. So I'll start us with a motion presentation from the district, any public comments, and then board discussion.
I move the board accept the monitoring report results for life management and personal awareness as presented.
Second.
Okay. Superintendent.
Great. I'd like to make sure that Dr. Bailey is able to step back to the podium, as well as joined by Rich Mellish here for results 4. This is the 3rd of our results that we'll be reviewing through the end of this year. and want to make sure that we have a robust conversation. Have spent some time debriefing a bit of the conversation from last year and also incorporating that into and this report. So I will turn it over here to Dr. Bailey.
Thank you very much. Thank you again for the opportunity to present results 4 to the board and the public on the topic of life management and personal awareness. This report centers firmly on how our students are moving forward in learning to make choices that support healthy lifestyles and aligning their choices to their future plans. Student achievement in coursework that connects to wellness is presented with similarly strong achievement to last year for both health and physical education. Achievement in coursework that supports students finding and pursuing passions is presented in the form of data that shows how often students in our high schools go beyond the minimum requirements in core content such as English and math, and also those specialized courses and programs such as engineering, information technology, and manufacturing as some examples. We'd like to highlight in this report the development and implementation of the comprehensive school counseling program led by Elena Sividasan, Executive Director of Equity, Belonging and Family Partnerships, Noah Westerberg, Director of Counseling and Student Wellbeing, and Melanie Bonanno, Coordinator in the Counseling and Student Wellbeing Department. In concert with a larger team of counselors and school administrators, this intentional work reflects the district's commitment to ensure that all students have access to equitable, data-informed, and developmentally appropriate supports. Student surveys, be it in the technology survey, the district annual surveys, or the student representative-led surveys, allows adults to see how students experience the programs we think are in place. In thinking about grit and perseverance, and the importance of growing these skills, students generally report being able to push through when stuck or when they experience setbacks. One way we consider how well students respond to struggle is how quickly and how successfully high school students engage in credit recovery. We see strong evidence of students taking the opportunity for credit recovery, both during the school year and during summer session. This is an opportunity for students to get back on track to graduation and start the next year ready to go. Data from the National Student Clearinghouse on the percentage of students who immediately enter 2- and 4-year colleges, how many of those students return for a second year, and how many of those students persevere to a bachelor's degree shows Issaquah students are achievers in this area, show grit in going back for the second year, and persevere to college graduation at higher than average numbers. Whatever a student's post-secondary goals are, setting goals and working to those goals and amending those goals is a life skill. This is a skill that's worked on through the career and future ready work, through the strategic plan, and the newly piloted teacher-led lessons. I would be remiss if I didn't highlight something about personal finance, because being ready to manage your own finances is adulting at its finest. We know the school board has a strong interest in this topic, and so do we. One bright spot to highlight is the evolution of the personal finance class to be 2 separate semesters, each with different content, which is an effort to create more opportunity. Perhaps next year's class might be interested in one or the other semesters if 2 semesters didn't fit into their schedule. We are here and happy to answer your questions.
Okay. Next we'll go to any public comment. Is there, well, the room cleared out. None on video. Okay, so I'll open it up to the board for any questions or comments. Director Coyne.
I had a few quick questions, and maybe I'll start with Dr. Bailey, your point on 4.9 on financial literacy, and thank you for noting that. I know as a board and myself, specifically have talked about the importance of that, being a finance professional, wanting to make sure that our students are graduating with that skill set is really important. So I'm glad the district is continuing to zero in on that. I'll start then with 4.1. I know we talked about this before when looking at results 4, but I want to continue to make sure or test into that, fitness is made to be positive. I know back in the day when I was in school, particularly middle school PE, it was not made to be fun. And I was looking at and it's not a huge decrease, but the decrease in a B- or better from middle school to high school, there is a slight decline. So you're seeing grades go down. Is that attributed to anything specific? would you say? I mean, it's not hugely significant, but I did see that change where we've got almost nearly 100% of our kids, of our students getting a B- or better, and then that shifts in high school. Do you have any idea why that?
I could posit a suggestion about middle schoolers being active, but I'd
Yeah.
have to look into that and bring it
That's
back to you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just curious. I just, again, kind of this going down that route of, hey, are we making fitness fun and positive? So I don't know if there was anything from that data. I was just kind of curious. My next question then is on 4.4. Students will identify, understand, develop their personal strengths and interests both inside and outside the classroom. I don't know if I missed this or not, but it goes back to our high school student focus group conversations that the board had recently, but this connection to outside activities, so school sports clubs. Do we have any way of tracking that, a percentage of students that are involved in some form or fashion of anything extracurricular?
It is in Final Site to track cut sports and not cut sports or open sports.
Yep.
In the tracking of students participating in activities, it would be very difficult to track per pupil. It would be everybody who's involved in each of the 187 clubs. So you'd have cross counting, I guess.
Yeah.
But that would be an onerous task to present, but there are hundreds of clubs across middle school and high school.
Okay. Well, and I get that from a data standpoint, and I know the importance of our high schools. I know we promote that too, for kids to be involved in that way. I wonder how many kids aren't taking advantage of that. And maybe it's from a data standpoint impossible to figure that out, but I'm wondering, I mean, even if there's crossover and you have students doing multiple things, which is
Right.
likely the case, you'd maybe just count them once as being involved. I guess I'm just curious. I'd want to pull out,
Yep.
what's that percentage who's not involved in anything?
I have a suggestion, and
Okay.
it might not be exactly what you want, but would be something we already have. So on the senior exit survey, there's a question that says, I have had enough access to clubs and activities that I wanted. So it wouldn't be necessarily a big, it's already available, but that tells us how many students said I had enough access to clubs that I wanted.
That would be great to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great. And that may answer that question. Just this sense of feeling that level of connection to and then I guess the question too around giving enough room in the schedule for students to get the classes that they're looking for. Again, looking at 4.4. I don't know if we have any metrics that help to show that or not.
Yeah, the question before the question I just mentioned in the exit survey says I have had the availability to take the courses I wanted to. And
Okay.
like it says, in general, I am satisfied with the availability of courses I want to take in high school. Both of those are in the senior exit survey, so data easily readily available to bring back to you.
Okay, perfect. All right, great. I'll leave it at that then. Thank you.
Gave it to us tonight, actually.
Oh.
It's right here. So
That's on the earlier.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
I'm taking notes on.
Ta-da.
Okay.
It's right there in your hands.
Thank you.
I planned that all along.
I do want to go back though to the point that Dr. Point was making first, to the bottom of page 2. So I'm concerned and continue to be concerned about this because I'm not seeing iterative change or improvement. And so from both an academic officer and teaching and learning, I would hope we would see change, and the needle is not moving. So if the district has set the standard as B- is proficiency or whatever word we want to use today, and below that is not, and we know how important getting all your credits are in your freshman year. And then we also know that underclassmen are generally the ones that are taking PE more so than our seniors and juniors. This is the disproportionate data for our underclassmen that are not being successful. So that's why this data is super important to me. And if we were seeing change where, gosh, 3 years ago it was 85% and now it's 90%, I could live with 10% being not proficient if I saw change in progress. So I'm a little concerned. No, I'm a lot concerned that we're not making progress. So I would love to know by buildings, because this is all consolidated data. Like, is it 85% at every one of our buildings? Or is there distinct differences between buildings? Because historically there has been. And so I would like to see that sent to our emails because, again, we have lots of barriers to student success. This should not be one of them.
Would you also like that by grade?
I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
So I think from what I'm hearing, I don't know who has the nice little chart. To make sure that that's included in future reports. Oh. Yeah, so that when that data comes to us, that it's broken up by school. And that's the phys ed. Great. Any other comments? Director Taylor.
I have questions. So I would just love input on page, let's see here. Where do I want to start? Page 12. Back to Director Coyne's point, and this is just a little bit different. It jumped out to me that the percentages are falling in the senior school exit survey when asked the question, ability to access sports clubs and other programs, that we're seeing less participation or a feeling of not being able to participate, I guess I should say. Do we have an explanation for that? And I'm curious if that, well, I'm going to let you answer that first before I make an assumption.
Drawing to your attention that last year, we had a poor response rate. So only 300 and, oh, well, but you can see the response rates by school. It was definitely less. Skyline was still high, but the other schools were less. And also remember that last year we instituted the neutral response. So the previous years could have had neutral in the positive because we added a neutral response. We changed the metric. And the response rates were low, so it would be hard to interpret that. I would be remiss in trying to make a judgment about why that would be.
Your assumption is it's a data anomaly, so to speak.
I think I will be interested in what this year's class says when they take it in a few weeks and see, 3 points makes a line.
Okay, page 14, high school and beyond plan. There's a recognition, right, that it's not being meaningful. It's not meaningful in engaging our students in career planning. And I know we've had this discussion in the past. I realize I want to have a better understanding of the strategic plan. There is work I know going on to try to make career planning more meaningful. My question is that work dependent on trying to make the high school and beyond plan program meaningful, or should we be asking our question if that's the right tool at all? I know it's a state requirement, but at some point, I'm just wondering if this is a square peg in a round hole? Yes, vice versa. Round, yeah, you get it.
Yep.
So you understand what I'm asking?
Yep.
I'm just wondering if at some point we have to recognize that the high school and beyond plan just isn't it. And we should look for some other tooling of some sort. You understand what I'm trying to get at? I would like to have some discussion
Let me take a
about.
stab at it. So one, the high school and beyond plan is required and we will be doing it.
Right.
In its iterations at the state level. But we also can strive to implement something that is more responsive to students and also meets the overall goal, which is, as we talked about in the work study, students are planning for their future and taking the courses that get them there, that hold the doors open to plan for their
Right.
future. And so the two parts of the strategy that I think are underway, and I'm quite proud, is moving the high school and beyond planning lessons for middle schoolers into middle school with teacher-led lessons. We didn't do that before. We had a strategic plan. It was always on the wish list and never on the action. And also this year they piloted and got feedback from students on teacher-led high school and beyond planning, or career planning, future-ready planning, course selection planning, that we now have great feedback on to iterate and do a better example of next year. So We won't not be doing the high school beyond planning
Well, yeah.
tool, but we will do our very best to make it current and relevant and important to students to meet that overall goal, which is setting goals and iterating them through your growing up years to make sure that whatever you're currently planning, you are taking the courses that get you to that stated
Right.
after graduation goal.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's just absolutely critical that we've got to find a way for kids to identify their aptitudes and their interests as early as we possibly can, so they can tailor their education, accordingly. So I was curious about that. Let's see. Hold on, there's more. Oh, point of clarification on page 20, again, in the survey data. We have all this data here about increasing achievement. And then I see the percentages where we start talking about the percentage of students who scored below 1 year, and then they increase their scores the next attempt. My question is, are these numbers good or bad, that 59%, 60%? I don't have a point of reference on
That
that.
is really, this type of analysis we cannot do with comparison districts or state data because it's looking at individual students and their improvement, and that's not something that we have access to. So I actually have some of the questions of when I see some differences year to year, how much of that is due to the variation in the actual testing and cut scores of the testing, and how much of that is a difference in the cohort itself is really hard for us to speak to exactly. And I so wish that I could have comparison data on this data point with other districts, because that is an excellent question that I cannot answer directly.
Okay. Okay, then my last question, which I think I already know the answer to, but I'm going to ask it anyway, which is page 22, again, exit survey, the question about I felt safe in high school. And I just noticed that the numbers here again fell precipitously. I take it you're going to tell me less survey respondents is the reasoning, or is there some rationale for why kids are potentially feeling less safe in their schools?
This data point in this format is missing the neutral, and probably a stronger or a corollary would be to look at the Healthy Youth Survey data over the same question. So we're trying to replicate the questions from the Healthy Youth Survey, but that we want to know every single year because the Healthy Youth is every other. So I do not recall that this number, if you added the neutral option back in, was much different than the Healthy Youth Survey data from the year before.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Director Mullings.
So I just want to go back to the question before last from Director Taylor and the point on resilience, which of course I just scrolled away from. Because I know this is one that was on my mind quite a bit the last time we monitored this point. And it's a very interesting, 4.6. So it's a very interesting point, right, that we're making in 4.6, that students will be resilient, take informed risk, deal constructively with failure, and flexible and adaptive to change. And I know that we don't know yet if these gross scores in the second attempt are good or bad. I think it's probably going to have to be a little bit more runway to know that. But I think what they're doing is getting a little bit better to the point that 4.6 is making, which is, do we have any data points that say that our students are trying again, like that there's not a defeatism in the process? So I was looking at the same numbers, like, was that good? Like, what do I think? How do I feel about those numbers? And I guess for me, where I'm landing is, right now, at least for me, that's not the point. I think it'll probably take a longer data set to figure it out, how we feel about it, like if we see it drop off or do something else interesting. But I at least do appreciate that it helps bring in some of the items like the credit recovery and grade improvement, like how many are not feeling defeated by a previous challenge. And so I think put together with the credit recovery and grade improvement below, I think we're at least getting closer to that answer. I worry very much in our highly competitive environment, in some of our grading practices, that we create an environment where kids feel hopeless, and therefore that bit about I'll stick it out the next time gets washed away. So I just would say like, it's better, right? It's better at getting to that question. I don't know ultimately how you measure the resilience, but I think these couple of data points are more helpful because that's something I deeply worry about is in our highly competitive, our highly academic environment. We forget about our goal being hope that kids can do better the next time.
Thank you. Any other? Feel free, Director Gallinger.
But
And then I will get to
had her
your
hand up
student.
first, so I'll let Naomi.
What was that?
Naomi has it.
Okay, well, Milo did.
Okay, sure. I'm like deeply, deeply concerned about our answer on page 3 in the 2023 Healthy Youth Survey, that 50% of our 8th graders and like 78% of our 10th graders and like 86% of our 12th graders did not get more than 8 hours of sleep. I know that's become the norm, but I really don't think it should be. It's down a little on the survey. And I mean, from all the things that we've learned through, I mean, science and everything in the last few years, that like getting less than 8 hours of sleep is, you really can't function on it, especially not growing children. I mean, it causes all kinds of things like difficulty with all the tasks and social difficulties, mood changes, reducing your brain function, but also can cause like really impactful long-term effects. And so I would like to see previous years too, along with this, to see if we're going down or up in those percentages. But also just wanting to know what we're doing about that to change those percentages, because they really do need to be changed. And I feel like the points in my life where I've been getting the least amount of sleep were the most stressful, the most academically draining, the most like depression fueling times of my life. And I know that's similar for a lot of students. And then the same with the eating breakfast yesterday or like this morning is just an insane number of students. Because if you think about how many students like we have, 67% eating means that like 23% are not, or 33, I don't know. But guys, I'm also functioning on low amount of sleep. And I would just want to know if the amount of sleep that they're getting is also linked to the periods of like if there's testing coming up or how many classes they're in that have like high workload or AP or IB, because those are big concerns. I know we strive for our students being high achieving in this district, but I also think that we should strive for them being physically and mentally healthy. And I think that might even be more important than their academic outcome.
So we are teed up to do the Healthy Youth Survey again in October, and we usually get the results by the end of February of next school year.
Okay, Director Gallinger.
I think I'll just start at the bottom and work my way up. So I'll go back to page 26. And I think that when we see that for the postgraduate survey, that 43% of our graduates feel prepared in working numerical problems and finances, that it's our job as a board to take action on this. And I think we've been talking about this enough times about the need for a personal finance class. The whole point of why we're doing all this is for our students. Their students are saying, and this isn't new, like for a decade, I've been on here, I've seen where students have said they don't feel very ready for that finance piece.
No.
Now more than ever seems important. So I would love for that to be captured on the notes of, and I want to bring it up as a agenda, like future agenda topics tonight of, I just think we need to move from talking about it and admiring the problem to actually coming up with an implementation plan And I don't know, again, that's the dance that we will do as in our role, because we prefer not to have to outline in policy a specific item, but feel like we're not being heard from an administrative level of saying like, we want to see an on-ramp of when this is going to happen, not as an option, because if you look at it by student, by schools, you'll see there's an inherent inequity about the true access. And I love that everyone who wants to take it can take it, but I think it has to go a little bit deeper, more curious about why there's such a gap. I would also say for that table where it says other business ed, and when the number there exceeds all the other rows combined, that's not helpful to me as a policymaker. Like, what does other business ed mean? So that means if there's 536 kids at Skyline that are in business classes, and I would love to see like a little bit more breakdown. Like, is it marketing? Is it like, I don't know what it is, but I know that when that number exceeds all the others combined, that becomes irrelevant able for me.
Thank you for that note. I'm wondering if, because only 108 students took the postgraduate survey and those results are always low and we don't really have any authority, if it would be acceptable to put this question in a similar format to the senior exit survey, which we generally do get a lot more about their graduation moment, not a year after their graduation. I think we would get stronger student response. And if that is an acceptable solution, we can work on that right away.
Yeah, as long as it's changed, the tense is changed to as you get ready to embark on your next step of life, how prepared do you feel to navigate your to manage your personal finances? That'd be perfectly fine. For me, I'm not speaking for the board, but
I would say I would, when I look at, how prepared do you feel in working numerical problems? I try to think like some students may stop there and go, oh, unprepared, rather than understanding our real question is around finances. Those are way two different things. So it might be with our senior exit interview or survey, we get to control the questions much more so that we're interested in what the outcome is. And I think this ends up being, is that a math question? I don't know what that question is really asking and what students might interpret that to mean. But if I ask them, how prepared are you for doing your own finances, I think is much more clear. And that's what we're interested in knowing.
I think ChatGPT and I will take a stab at writing an senior exit survey question. Upon graduation, how prepared do you feel? Whatever ChatGPT advises me.
Director Dellinger, can I just add one? I know I just want to tack onto this point into what Director Maraldo said too. But I think, yes, very specific, not even just personal finance. I think very specific items that would fall under that. So students know specifically what we're talking about. And I think one thing that I would like to test into this section too is I think there's this sense of, hey, if I'm taking advanced math, I'm not going to take the personal finance course. And we have to think about that more as a district because they're different. Someone's taking advanced math, they still need to be taking personal finance. And I think we think of in our district, personal finance is maybe an option for a lower level math course. So I would just throw that out there as a thought. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I agree. It needs to be as essential as our CTE and every other part of it. That's part of the whole child part that we want. So on page 24, can you bring clarity to the table data? Is that where they could select numerous options, and then of the numerous options, 34% selected resume and senior interview activities, meaning that the numbers don't add up to 100%.
Right. I'm glad you asked that. The whole postgraduate survey is posted on the district website, but they have about 10 options there to choose from. And I bring this forward to show what part of the high school and beyond planning worked for them. And so these two have been in the top two for the past 2 years. So when we start asking that question.
So I guess I would like to know what's the district response when it's dropped down to only 1 in 3 students feel like that is value activity. So Is there an adjustment to change it? Is there? Because if 2/3 of your population feel it's not valuable, then that's still important instructional time that's being spent on this. So either one, how do we make it feel more valuable? Or two, who's responsible for getting responses for these types of things when it's only 95 people responding out of our,
Yeah.
1,200 seniors?
Mhm.
It has to have, who in the organization is responsible to make sure that this is actually completed?
Sure. So in the senior exit survey, it asks the students, basically give us, if you're willing, give us your personal email account so we can send you the survey. But we don't really have any authority after they leave the school to make them do anything. I think this strategy in priority 2 about making the high school and beyond plan activities, not just check boxes, but make the activities relevant and important to students. I think that this is also shown in the senior exit surveys when people go interview students, although that would be very hard to get adults' perspectives of what the student said, but that is a question they ask, like, what really worked for you? And the reason this is asked a year later is because I don't know that seniors know what they don't know until they go out into that first year after high school. But if there's a better way to ask that question, happy to model on that. We don't have any authority to make the post-exit survey any more than it is. And the entire strategy, not the entire strategy, a big part of the strategy in priority 2 is about making the high school and beyond plan exercises not check boxes, but more relevant to what the students are needing to know and learn.
I do think also on this, it's the question is, which exercise did you find most valuable? So is that a single answer that they give? And so then you really can't measure
They rank them 1, 2, 3. So
Yeah.
there's like
So
10.
it might be that, oh, some other things in the high school beyond plan are now better than they used to be. So it's, without having the full list, it's a little unclear, the information that this is providing.
This does raise a question for me around the postgraduate, the postgraduate surveys are something you're raising a question on, which is how do we make ourselves accountable to gathering as much data about how the experiences of our graduates after they leave our system, which is beneficial, but these are just such low numbers. And it would take a really big significant shift to have the level of accountability where we were really, and the culture to get students to fill it, or alumni of our system to fill this out. So the question I guess I have is this data, even in this form, somewhat helpful with, even with modifications to try and get at the questions that we're wondering about? Is it helpful? I mean, this is one of those legacy things that have always been in place. And so I always want to take the moment to ask the question of the board. You're asking questions because we're presenting it to you information-wise, but maybe it's not yielding the kind of input that you were hoping for as well.
And I can think I'd reflect that back to you as a superintendent. Is a postgraduate survey, like not just in isolation, but
Yeah.
in totality, does it bring value? Because I don't know. I know when I see 95, that doesn't give me a like warm fuzzy as far as
Completion
I
rates.
feel comfortable like taking action
Correct. Yeah. So I
or making meaning based on less than 10% of our graduates.
correct. So I find this data not helpful, but part of there's a legacy question that I also don't have the full history on, and so why this was, developed within the context of monitoring reports. So maybe President Peralta can help me.
Well, I think because we used to have higher rates of responses, and I think the district was looking for what can I give you? I think, do I find it meaningful? Well, the current data in its current form with its current values of people answering is no longer helpful. But there is a nearby school district who the last time the Healthy Youth Survey happened only had 39% of their seniors take it. So then they can't report on it. So their answer to that was in 2023 to not offer it at all to their seniors. Well, that doesn't get you any better data. So for me, it's not so much, I think it would be meaningful that after students have been away for a year and can reflect back, I think their answers are very meaningful to how did we do, what might we need to do different because we think we're doing okay. But as long as we're not getting answers, it then becomes, well, it's not valuable. So my question would be, is there a way that we can look at doing that differently? Is it having another outside, or I think, having an outside organization that's helping us to ensure that students are taking it? Whatever that might be, having somebody sponsor the survey so that students can get a $5 gift card for responding, something that can initiate improving the number of respondents rather than dumping the whole thing. And then we do have meaningful data that can be reflected on. And I see Naomi's hand.
Adding on to the list of potential solutions to what we're discussing right now, I think when I think about a postgraduate survey and I think about the emails I receive from the school district and how other people receive emails from the school district, it's not something that we pay much attention to, even while we are students within the school. And we can tell that from our surveys right now. We aren't getting a lot of attention from our students. So what I think, if we want to get more attention, I think we can include more of our student groups that are currently in the building. For example, ASB, journalism, iVision, yearbook. I know when I'm looking at my emails, I don't pay too much attention to like the regular emails that look very business-like. I pay attention to the emails and messages that come from people I know personally. So for example, my underclassmen in ASB, in my badminton team, if they were to say, hey, like you should take this survey so that our school can be better, then I would pay more attention to it. So I think if we had, I know a lot of the school Instagrams, the school ASBs have Instagrams, and I know a lot of the alumni that graduated, they still follow it. They still keep in touch. So if we do want to get a little bit more attention from them, we can also explore that avenue. I know it's not very conventional, but just another option.
So moving to page 23, where we do have responsibility and ownership, I would love to know, the numbers have like really dropped off this past year as far as survey response for our secondary students. So who, like, where is the accountability for that? Because when it becomes 20% or less than 5%, how do we make meaning of that? And so for me, it's troubling to see a high school soft skills survey go from 2,645 responses to 103.
Yep. So we were aware of that. We saw that coming in the later part of June last year. We sent messages again to the schools, and there was a number of things that could have happened in the land of technology about students not seeing it or thinking they were done because we had too many surveys going on at once. In effort to remedy that, last summer, we sent an email to every parent of a student in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th grade, and we got almost no more. So we were trying to push them out again, say, hey, we had something happen with the surveys and we're asking for your help, and got almost no response to add to those numbers. This is a known blip last year, and we have already pushed them out for this year, and we are on it. We are on it like you've never seen before. And we pushed the due date up a little bit, so we have full 2 weeks of school if we don't see student responses in the numbers that we would expect to see. So our strive for this year is to have 80% participation for middle school and high school, all the way up through the senior exit survey.
Love it. And then page 16, that top table, when it says, I felt my creativity and individuality was valued and encouraged during my high school years. To me, those are pretty significant drops, where at least Skyline has very similar student responses between last year and this year. And Liberty certainly has a trend also down, had more student responses than 2 years ago. So I think when I look at this and combine with the other chunks where creativity, individuality, other things about like, do they feel like they have access to things? I get a little nervous, or I would like to know the why behind it. And I don't know, have you guys explored how we could tease out more of the why? Because that would be really helpful in knowing like what's changed, because the board made big investment in adding a 7th period to our high schools, in part to be able to ensure that students could choose their passion and to pursue things that they were interested in. So to me, it's troubling to see the trend going where they don't feel that that's valued. And I think to me, it's more connected than not for, we want students to have opportunity to explore, but we want it to be where it's explore in a low stress environment. And when many of our teachers are approaching this where it's this grade is as important as this class is as important as your core classes that are graduation requirements, I think that stifles the willingness of our students to put themselves out there. And so I think that that's what concerns me and why it's connected to the bigger picture about grading and homework. I don't know what any of my board colleagues think about that.
Director Mullings.
Go ahead.
Director Coyne.
And Director Gallagher, you may have mentioned this, but it's just interesting when we look at Gibson Neck relative to the other schools on that specific question. Again, I know our number of respondents is low, and that's a concern I have with so many of these data points, because it's tough to make conclusions based on some of.
There was only about 30 some graduates, so.
Yeah. That is true, though. You're right. Yes, that's true. Yeah. It's getting late, so you're right. But I think it does show something. I think that, at Gibson X, students have the ability to be more closely tied to their career, their field of choice. And I think when we think about the other high schools, we have to think about how do we give them that opportunity. I think Director Gallagher, you're right. With a 7 period, the intention of that, I just wonder if students are feeling that that's giving them that lift at Liberty, Issaquah, and Skyline. And I don't know if it necessarily is. So I think it's a question we have to ask ourselves: are they feeling that that 7th period is not it? My guess is they're feeling it's giving them more work and less choice with 7th period.
Krish. Go ahead. Zero.
Hello. Okay, I want to touch on something that Director Gallagher brought up, and it was the low stress environment and this kind of like 7th period class being more weighted than a core class. And so I'm going to share a quick story. So this Wednesday was actually my first day of school in like a week and a half, because I was out traveling. I got sick for a couple of days. And so I come back, I'm looking at my homework and all the stuff I missed. And my hardest class right now is not any of my core classes. It's actually that one elective class that I chose to take, that I was interested in. And it's just the workload in that class is so much higher. It creates that stressful environment. And I feel like that's kind of why we see this kind of like a steady decline in agree or strongly agree. It's because a lot of students I know similarly feel that way. Because the whole point of those classes, to take a risk, take a chance, figure out what you're interested in, figure out in your life. But when that class becomes, as important, if not more important than your core class, it's kind of like, it's like, oh, why'd I take it sort of thing.
Thank you. Director Mullings.
I guess my comment is on like the response level in general. I think one of the things we're going to have to rethink, many organizations are going to have to rethink, is the approach we take in which we collect information from people. We are at a generational change in how people interact. You're asking a current 19-year-old to go into an email account they don't care about to answer a survey for a place they're glad they're gone from. I mean, just be honest. And I say that thinking about my own 19-year-old who there's no way she knows where that email is or will ever respond to it. Now, I think if there was to be, I think to Naomi's point, a friendlier known option, if we decided what we really want is alumni engagement going forward, then we would structure an alumni engagement program that keeps cohorts of our students engage with what's happening at school. We do that in a format that they actually care about, which I don't even know if there's anything beyond Snapchat or something else. But I just think that and I experience this professionally, email, and I spend millions of dollars on email marketing. It's just becoming an ineffective communication device. And so I would argue we probably have a question we should be talking about if we care about these things is like, what's our alumni engagement strategy? And how do we really build that sense of community before our students leave? And, find out from them, like, what do you care about? Maybe it'd be the only thing I'd ask in the senior survey, and let them pick if it's the sports teams or what's happening in my club, and then use that as a targeting method going forward. Like, some kids get the update from, girls flag football. Other kids are getting it from robotics, which I'm a new fan of. Other kids are getting it from someplace else. But I think just in general, this method won't serve us going forward. And that's not a problem with like what we're trying to do or the point of it. I think we're just at a generational change in how people choose to engage in this way.
Sorry, now we're finally at the parts that I really care about.
Okay.
So, page 7. So if it's about students that are doing responsible social media and digital citizenship, and the numbers going down, and this is after we've adopted a different curriculum that focuses on this in our middle schools, that begs the question for me is win at social effective? Because the response would show that it may not be. And obviously it's just one tiny piece of data, but still, if we're investing resources and expecting, I think, a different result than what we're getting. So 1 year does not make a trend, but if the next year comes out and it's similarly like that, I hope that there is a curiosity of we probably need to pivot from this because while it sounded nice, it's actually not effective. And we need to be able to let go of things. And I feel in our district, we have trouble letting go of things. And we hold on them for so long.
I'm sorry, can you, we couldn't quite hear what section or page you were looking
Page
at?
7?
It is page 7. Okay, thank you.
So I am looking at this past year's, students are taught responsible, safe, legal, ethical ways, and I see the drop that you might be responding to about agree, and adding those two together, we still have 90% of the students who say they are taught what to do. Maybe we could look at finding a triangulation question in a different survey somewhere else to say, how can we ask that question in a different way to see if that is a true answer, or ask the students to help us rewrite that to get to what you're really wanting to know.
How do you get to 90%? Why would neutral be included?
I think sometimes middle school students don't have a strong, my opinion, Dana Bailey opinion is that sometimes neutral for a middle school student is a positive response.
Also, to your point around discontinuing things that are maybe not showing evidence of impact is a question that we are asking more and more, and agree it's sometimes hard to let go of things, or we just sort of keep going with them because they're already in place. So it's a fair question, and I expect that we will revisit that for all things, but also just hear your point around how we're improving the awareness of our students and being digital natives in an ethical and responsible way.
Thank you. And then the section about mental health and the Swedish partnership and all the different attachments that came with that. Just, one of them, you have to enter your board email and password in order for the link to open. So it's not an open link, so that needs to be.
Yep, thank you.
We'll check that. Thank you.
And then I liked on it where it shows and compares the difference or the similarities between last year and this year as far as the student need with regard to what's the reason they're visiting counselor. And I think for me, I wanted to highlight the importance of it because for our students that ultimately seek care beyond our doors, which this is not intended to be a long-term therapeutic relationship, but because it is documented in Epic, when they go out and visit someone else in the community, having that documentation is essential for that continuity of care. And so I know there has been numerous frustrations about that partnership with Swedish. I don't want that to be missed for the importance of continuity of care, because that Epic documentation can be seen by any healthcare provider in our region.
Any other comments? I just had a few, going back to things, information that we used to have. One of the things that we used to have is, how many students are taking PE during summer school? And we had that by, or online as a means of, because, and then by school, because I find it's probably less effective than the actual class. And so it's interesting to know how many students are taking that as an opportunity to open up their schedule because they're busy doing other things, rather than taking the actual class. I'm specifically interested because Liberty used to have a very high PE in the school numbers when they had 8 periods. So I'd really like to know how the 7th period day impacted the number of Liberty students taking PE. Then the one I really wanted to look at, and I think we might have discussed, no, actually we didn't discuss it, was on page 22 at the top, the senior exit survey. I know we changed the question on that. So the original question is, in general, I feel safe in high school, particularly in classrooms, so that I could risk being wrong and not ridiculed or marginalized in my high school years. And we took that, changed it a little bit to now it says, in general, in my classrooms, I felt I could risk being wrong and not be ridiculed or marginalized during my high school years. The numbers on that are stunningly low, especially in some of our schools. That students are actually answering, yeah, I think I felt like I was fearful that I would be ridiculed or marginalized if I was wrong. That to me, out of all the items on here, this is the one that I thought that is egregious to say that 45% of our students at Skyline don't want to risk being wrong because they feel they're going to be marginalized or ridiculed. That number is even higher as at Liberty. That they're scared of being wrong. So I think, to me, I don't know where this discussion lands, but this was the most shocking data in the entire report. Because I think, especially in a world right now where people do feel like, I don't know if you live in one type of state, you can't say things. If you, on the other hand, live in another type of state, you can't say things. If anything, we've got to be able to create an environment where our children can start shifting how they interact with the people around them. And that it's okay to take that risk. Sometimes you are going to be wrong. Sometimes you might not be wrong, but others think you're wrong. But how are we going to interact with each other? If I start to fear that I'm going to be ridiculed or marginalized, if I take any type of risk, I won't take any risks at all. And what's the point of being a high achieving student who doesn't brave taking risks? It's really like you've taken your education and you're just keeping it to yourself, rather than some of the other things that we want you to live as responsible members of society. Part of that is taking a risk, using what you've learned. You can be academically prepared, but if you can't take the risk to pursue the opportunities you want to be taking, are you really going to then be a student living healthy, satisfied, and productive lives? That's why this is in there.
Be more, and I think that's for me the heart of why social emotional learning is so important and why we still haven't gotten it right for our high schoolers. And I think in the same way for, as Hava said, for your cell phone policy, you need to explain like the why behind it. I think we haven't clearly articulated the why behind social emotional learning and why it's so important. And maybe it needs a rebranding of a name, because I think people hear it 6 through 12 and they're like, oh my gosh, I have like vomit in my mouth. So, but it's really about trying to equip students to be able to engage meaningfully with internally and externally so that they are healthier and more confident. And somehow we're missing the mark on that. And I don't know any answers, but it seems like we've got to figure this out, because those are terrifying numbers. And I believe those are real. I mean, I have 2 secondary kids in my house, and I know they both feel that way.
And I'd love at some point listening sessions with students around this to be able to dig in deeper. Even more than 3 questions, like where is this coming from? Who are you feeling at risk of being ridiculed or marginalized by? Because it may be things that we can't control, or it may be things that we can. Is it that we need to be teaching students at a much younger age how to react to others who make mistakes? What is our response to that? We talk about even things like restorative practices when it comes to discipline. So what are we doing when students make a wrong decision? How are we teaching them to support themselves? How are we teaching them to support others who make mistakes? How are we ensuring that the adults in the building aren't actually contributing to this? And that's the part we can control. So that's what I was left with. I don't know if there's any other thoughts. Director Coyne and then Hava.
Just one thought on that, because I do agree. I think it is concerning, but I wonder, with some of these questions, their interpretation can be a little bit different. So I like your point, Director Maraldo, around maybe a focus group of sorts, because I'm not sure. It'd just be useful, I think, to dig into this a little bit more, because I think students could be interpreting this in different ways, and I'd love to just know more about that too, as we think about how we act on this, I guess, going forward.
Hava.
I have a few things to say. First of all, kind of like logistics of surveys. On Monday, yes, Monday. I don't know if it was the same across all Gibbs Neck, but we spent almost an entire period filling out surveys, which is kind of frustrating. And we were not allowed to, it was effective. We were not allowed to leave until we'd finished all of the surveys that we had to do for that day. But it was also like a lot of surveys, and it's been kind of like that throughout the year. And then also, I don't know if it's been rectified, but for this year's soft skills survey at Gibson Neck, pretty much as far as I know, none of the freshmen were able to log in. So, and then for this question that we've been talking about, I think that something that is important is for students to like not only know how to respond to somebody else who is like who may have made a mistake or said something incorrect or whatever, but also as the person speaking, like how to state opinions in a respectful and a respectful way that invites other views. I think that's another important part of communication and interacting as a productive and respectful member of society. And also teaching like an attitude of like making mistakes is the way we learn. We don't learn by first learning exactly how to do it correctly and then not doing anything unless we're exactly sure how to do it correctly. That's not how we learn. We learn by making mistakes. We learn by falling down and practicing and messing up, and to instill that attitude in students that when you make a mistake, It's not the end of the world. Like when somebody else makes a mistake, we don't need to look down on them like, oh, they screwed up. They don't know how to interact in this way. They like are totally wrong. Like what? And to teach that we make mistakes, and when we make mistakes, we learn from them. And if somebody else makes a mistake, respectfully share like, hey, I'm not sure if that is what you meant to do. I'm not sure that was the best way to handle the situation. And to be able to do that respectfully, student to student, and to have examples set by staff and teachers.
Krish.
Thank you. I want to go back to a point Hava brought up, and it was explaining the why behind SEL. And so I remember my middle school years, I despised SEL because I didn't understand why we were doing it. It kind of felt like I was just sitting there and, just listening to these teachers explain the stuff to me. The teachers, a lot of my teachers didn't like teaching it as well. And I think the last SEL lesson I had was honestly my 8th grade year. And so it's been a long time since. And I think that's why a lot of people are responding so negatively. It's because they don't understand, or they're not like being reintroduced to this idea that, hey, it's okay to take risks. It's okay to take mistakes. And I think that explaining why is such a big component of that, because, but by seeing this other dimension, if I known that focusing and paying more attention to SEL would have benefited me 10 times better now, I definitely, my 8th year, wouldn't have been talking in the back of class with my friends. I would have been obviously paying more attention. So I do think it goes back to explaining why, and, getting not only students, but teachers on board with this as well. Because a lot, not just students, but a lot of teachers, dislike going through these lessons as well.
Great. Thank you. Well, this has been a robust decision, but we still have a motion on the table. So if we're ready to take a vote. Oh, student advisory vote. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then our board. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you very much for that robust discussion. And then on to our next agenda item is communication strategies. Executive Director Sherwood.
I always like to be the headliner. So thank you for this opportunity. President Moraldo, members of the board, Superintendent Toyek, student representatives, and our community for the opportunity to share these communication strategies for 2025 and 26. Grounded in the theme of building trust and strengthening engagement, this work reflects our shared belief that consistent, transparent, and inclusive communication is essential to a strong school system. Communications is more than crisis response. It's a strategic function, just like marketing. Both require analyzing our audience, identifying their value, and learning from experiences to strengthen our brand. Recently, we completed a district communications audit using NSPRA's rubrics of practice and suggested measures that place our district in the established category, affirming strengths and highlighting growth areas. As a small but capable team, we're already implementing many of these strategies. Like the board, our communications team is strongest when working in unison, collaborating, and ensures that our messaging is consistent, our experiences are cohesive, and our community trust grows stronger with every interaction. These strategies emphasize alignment, help us work smarter, stay student-centered, and increase impact through clear and effective communication. Our purpose is clear: to improve internal and external communication systems to build trust and strengthen engagement. That means aligning strategies to what matters most to our audiences. We need to show what's going well in our schools, and we're in a local media desert. We must become the storytellers. We also need to reach the residents without school-age children, those who vote on bonds and levies and want to understand the impact of our work. By using real-time feedback, we can improve the customer experience, track performance, and ensure our communication builds confidence throughout the district. RPI framework. To do this well, we are adopting this RPI framework: research, planning, and implementation and evaluation. This means leading with data and by gathering feedback through qualitative and quantitative means. We'll align all communications with NSPRA's critical function areas and our strategic plan priorities. We'll leverage brand storytelling, use the right channels for each audience, and set clear metrics. Then we'll adjust because responsiveness is a key part of our strategy. To build trust, we must connect more deeply with families, especially those experiencing barriers, misinformation, or lack of engagement. That starts with clear, consistent storytelling that reflects the real strength of our students and staff. We'll simplify how we communicate strategic plan progress and create feedback loops that inform decision making. As our community demographics continue to evolve, multilingual accessibility remains essential. We will be intentional in how we address misinformation, focusing on facts, empathy, and accountability. Engagement must go beyond parents and caregivers, taxpayers, business partners, and you mentioned earlier, alumni. These voices matter too. We will emphasize collaborative leadership, highlighting how the board and the superintendent align decisions with student outcomes and community values. Through unified messaging, we can demonstrate shared success. We'll also make sure district updates and decisions that affect families and communities are easier to access. Elevating our narrative. Our stories are powerful tools. We'll highlight innovation, equity, fiscal responsibility, instructional approaches, and inclusive progress, showing what it looks like when students and staff thrive. We'll elevate student-led media, integrate storytelling across platforms, and ensure our board and leadership voices are part of that story to connect classroom progress with governance. Through consistent messaging and story alignment, we can show how district values come to life every day. Every interaction is an opportunity to build trust. From front office calls to email replies, families and staff expect professionalism, empathy, and consistency. We're committed to training all staff in customer service practices, recognizing excellent service, and providing leaders with tools that help them communicate effectively and consistently with their teams and communities. Service must reflect our values and our strategic plan because we need more positive, tangible experiences to be elevated and shared within our community. Crisis communication is about clarity, consistency, timeliness, and reassurance. We're reviewing and updating our procedures where necessary to align with national standards and emphasize training, redundancy, and accessibility. We'll conduct joint drills with emergency agencies and ensure staff are trained and send families annual safety expectations. Multilingual access will be considered and built into every layer of crisis messaging. We'll also be transparent and compassionate during difficult times, showcasing leadership at all levels and how we recover and move forward. This also builds trust. As the old adage goes, what gets measured gets improved. We'll track engagement, sentiment, and reach, then align those metrics with the strategic plan priorities. We'll annually evaluate our effectiveness on their NSPRA's critical function areas. We'll continue to incorporate and monitor board and superintendent reflections within our work. By connecting data to decisions, we can stay accountable to our goals and to the students and the families we serve. And in conclusion, communications is not just a support function. It's how we show who we are as a district and how we deliver on our mission to ensure all students thrive. As a team, we're committed to listening, learning, and leading with strategy. Thank you again to the board and superintendent and the student reps for your time and your shared leadership to prioritize communication as a part of good governance. I look forward to continued collaboration. I'm happy to answer any questions.
So I'll open it up to the board. Any questions or comments? Director Coyne.
I had two items. Mark, great presentation. Thank you. Very comprehensive. If we go to we're on slide 2. Perfect. I guess a couple things. One, I always like to emphasize this for our community, but 70% of our residents do not have school-age children, and they also have the highest propensity to vote. So communicating with that population is really important. And I think would love to, and I know that, probably obviously not the discussion tonight, but as we move forward, love to understand what that engagement will look like and how we target that community. I also, as you were going through this, was having a thought around, have we ever thought strategically about telling our story to those that sell our community? So to real estate agents, developers, doing more, because they're always selling it.
Yeah.
Top rated Issaquah schools, but I don't think they really know our story. I'm just curious if there's opportunities to engage in that community, doing some sort of information sharing with, as you've written here, with different facets of the community. Is that something that's on the radar too?
Absolutely. And I've done this before and actually in partnership with board members in their regions and their schools.
Yeah.
So you're having kind of a discover our school kind of tour with some real estate leaders and brokers. And that's part of the reason is so they can come in and learn and not just take it for granted what's on Zillow or Redfin or any of the tools that they're using out there, but they actually get I talked about tangible experiences. They're not just looking at data or at the bottom of a real estate sheet saying, oh, this school is great today. And that's what they're telling their customers. So I think they need to get also a feel for what our school looks like in the community that they're selling houses or multifamily, housing or condos, you name it. So,
Yeah, that's music to my
yeah.
ears. I mean, I think we want to make sure too, they're selling the right information
Yep.
too with it. So
Yep.
that's great. Those are the questions I had. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Director Gallinger.
Thank you for your presentation. Super appreciate it and excited to
Thank
see
you.
the work ahead. You mentioned alumni on one of your slides, and since we were just having a lengthy conversation
Yep.
about that, do you have anything that is top of mind regarding how we could strengthen our alumni connections and their connections to the heart of what we do?
Yeah, so obviously our high schools have, their own alumni associations and year after year, whether they have their 5-year or their 10-year. What happens is a lot of times the alumni presidents aren't coming together for an annual like all district alumni event or an all, or how they can get involved in whether it's having their own booth at Salmon Days or having different opportunities to engage with the greater, broader community, but to show that they're also in support of the district as a whole. Some other districts have done things where they've done Hall of Fames. So then they start getting a little bit more of an older crowd getting back interested in the district. So when I say a Hall of Fame, it could be a joint venture with a foundation or a fundraising opportunity annually. And then again, now you're providing a little bit more of an opportunity to reconnect with the district. And that also provides those opportunities for the current district to share some key updates of what's going on. So I think those are some tactics we have to look at, but I think it's getting those current high school presidents or alumni presidents on the same page and meeting where we talked about having advisory committees and groups. That's another advisory committee group that should be probably formed down the road.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Like you're not Martin.
I'm temporarily in charge.
I got it. Not so much questions. I just want to offer some comments as
Sure.
well. Along with Director Coyne, I very much think it's critical, this piece about reaching out to the 70% of our population who don't have kids in the school. During the bond campaign, I heard it over and over again while I was out doorbelling with older citizens saying, I don't hear from the schools. I'm not sure what's happening in our school system. It's just critical for our voting block moving forward that we need those people to be engaged as much as we can. So we're highly supportive of that. And also just wanted two other things. I love this idea about cultural topic or geo specific town halls.
Yep.
As we know, our town halls can be rather hit or miss as to what the participation level is, but I think this approach might give us an opportunity to really have some more in-depth, informative discussions with the community, which I think would be valued. So again, I think that's a great idea. And then lastly, the student-led media, we saw during the bond, I think our most, effective communications were those videos that our high school students made. Being at the ISF fundraiser just recently and watching our students that are so poised and well-spoken, and those real life stories are what really register. So I think this is spot on, trying to do more of this stuff as we move forward. But overall, commend you. This is a great plan, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank
as we
you.
move forward on it.
Looking forward to it.
So I have a few. Thank
Sure.
you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I guess maybe my overarching question is, I love a framework more than the average person. So I love seeing one in place here, that's what you'll leverage. When or how will we see how this translates into, I guess, more of the actual editorial calendar, the actual artifact? Like what will we put out in what order?
Well,
'Cause
then,
this is
okay.
still pretty conceptual at this level.
Sure. You want me to answer that question or do you have?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I'll go on to my next couple.
So obviously we're doing a little bit of flying the plane while we're building the plane right now.
Mhm.
And as you know, not telling you anything you don't already know in the marketing and communications world. You want to have all your qualitative and quantitative data in your hands, then you want to start creating your objectives and you want to align them with your strategies, and then you start choosing the tactics you think are going to best connect with your audiences. And as you know, the behaviors are changing. They're not exactly the way we can't use all these traditional means. Director Taylor just said, when I was knocking on doors and I was, talking with PTA members, some of the grassroots methods of getting engagement are going to have to probably come back into play, especially in an area where we don't have a real strong, like I said, we're in a media desert. That's part one. Part two, not everybody is utilizing all, email. So if I'm trying to target and I'm trying to do some different digital efforts to get into their feeds in various ways, we have to find unique ways to connect them. So to go back to that is right now I'm taking these strategies. If I've got your feedback, then my team is going to kind of work from a little bit from top and bottom, from the middle out to the top and the back. So we're going to continue to gather some qualitative and quantitative data to see if the tactics we choose are aligned. I'm going to formalize that into a plan throughout the next year. And that part of that will be an editorial calendar and what we're planning to do in each month. And then also making sure the story ideas that we bring into our team are actually assigned to key priorities. So if somebody's telling me, hey, I want to do this and it's not aligned to the strategic plan, then I have to make that decision. Is this a board initiative, a superintendent initiative, or is this just somebody who's just saying loudest why we should do it? And then I have to make the decision that it may not matter or may not be something we want to do. So I want to go into the new school year having a solid plan written that my team has adopted and they're helping me build.
Okay, that's super helpful just to get a sense of expectation on when we'll start to see the new structure start coming to life.
Just to add to that, while I'm trying to get quantitative and qualitative data, I also know we have our levies coming up. So I'm trying to see how I can leverage gathering some of that data at the same time. That'll also help me. We're doing all of our data with our student surveys, some of that data is going to help me too, as well as we start, assigning and aligning some key tactics.
I will add that the editorial calendar is even more important because one of the best ways to reach the 70% of people that don't have students, that also skews a bit of a different generation in terms of usage patterns and how they consume information. We are going to increase the direct mail.
Yeah.
We had decreased that.
Next question.
So, there you go.
Keep
So that's one, a thing, but that also then will be a driver for the editorial calendar because it's more production of pieces. But also we know that's an important way that people consume information.
And the kind of content that they digest in those pieces too. We're going to adjust that to be a little bit easier, a little bit more streamlined so we can increase the frequency of reaching some mailboxes.
Wonderful. So I guess at least for me, I maybe wasn't as aware of when we decreased the direct mail. So I think being more clear, that's why I'm asking about what's the full calendar and how do we reach some of these folks? So then maybe my last piece gets to your point about misinformation. And I'd say one of the pieces of misinformation that is most troubling to me is or conceptually is we get caught between like national stories or even broader regional trends that people will apply to Issaquah, even though they're not actually factually true. So we have all these wild things people will say, but one of those I think we don't have the best, we could have better ownership of in the message is our school district's performance against state numbers and even national trends. And I think today we're missing a huge opportunity to really be clear about that and in any other way where we are differently performing from some of these national trend or national story items that go out, I think we have to be much more proactive in saying, actually, we are 20 points above state performance. Like people love to complain about sliding performance, but we're 20 points above across all those metrics. And I think we're maybe a bit demure or something in our posture that doesn't allow us to just be clear on that. And so it's not just, so in addition to the more regular or the clear calendar, how we're reaching the subgroups, I think there's also some positioning I think we need to talk about that historically we've maybe, I don't know if we just didn't want to brag or something, but we also just don't take clear ownership of what are better results. And so I think maybe that's my third piece, like, and so we leave space in that way for misinformation to seep in that I just think is not productive. Like, there's lots of other kinds of misinformation, but where it relates to actual performance,
Yeah.
we're actively seeding that ground because we don't ever talk about it. So I just think there's the positioning and messaging that we have to look at as well about how we talk about the district.
I agree. And I think, on an annual basis, the state is putting out their data. That is definitely an opportunity for us to blow it up and make sure that our entire community is hearing it, and then built it into our frequency when we specifically when we're talking about achievement, making sure people are reminded that this is where they can get the current data and that what it means. And maybe it's, like you said, it might be a little bit more of a value proposition along our achievement where we are, and repeating that with frequency.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Yeah, just my overriding quick comment is great job, and we're really looking forward to better connecting with our public.
Yep. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is legislative matters.
Ugh.
Ugh.
What to say? The session is over, as we saw. We're waiting to see the governor's response to the budget that's been presented to him. I think overall, at least me personally, rather disappointed with what we saw come out of the legislature this year. Thankful for the increases that we did see, modest increases in special education funding and MSOC, but many factors below the funding we need to fill the gaps that we continue to see in those areas. So I have personally reached out to several legislators over the last week and had conversations with them, which many of them have shared the same frustration, but I expressed, this is AJ Taylor's opinion, but I just expressed my position that we continue to see this constant kind of statements of support for educational funding. We see it over and over. Yes, I support education. I support education. My message to these people, though, is we need champions. We're at a point we need champions for these causes now, not people that are, in a way, in my mind, glad handing educational support. So I expressed that opinion and have asked our legislators, particularly Representative Hunt and Representative Callan, if they'd be willing to spend some time with us this summer to strategize in this area, and they've both enthusiastically said they would. So I'm encouraged by that. We'll have an opportunity to have a discussion with them. We'll try to reach out to our contacts in the 41st as well and have similar discussions. But I think we need to spend some time this summer thinking very purposefully about how to move forward and perhaps a different strategy. I don't know what that is right now, but that's my summation.
Right. Anything else from the district?
We're grateful for the increases in a time when many agencies and other parts of the budget were reduced. I'm also grateful that the eminent domain bill included certain components that are favorable to our district. So those are my thoughts. Our work is really now moving to the tactical of working through what that means for our budget and our projections, and that's coming forward back to the board in a couple meetings, in addition to making sure that we take advantage of all the available additional grants that might come out through part of the bill as well, because there are additional funding sources that might be available through for special education centers of excellence, for example. So that's an opportunity for us to take advantage of those opportunities.
Okay, thank you. The next item on our agenda is announcements and correspondence. So there is a list of correspondence that we have received. And I don't know if there's any that need to be added. Hearing none. We can go on to the next agenda item, calendar and agenda, future agenda topics. So I did mark the future agenda topic of how do we put together an implementation plan to ensure students are ready for dealing with the numerical problems and finances. And I think specifically around finances. So that's something we can put in the future. And that might be something even during the board retreat we can consider. The board will review, let me see. We have a reminder for a town hall on Monday from 5:30 to 7 p.m. at Issaquah Middle School Library. And then per a discussion earlier, we want to, previously, we want to move the start time for the June 10th board meeting. Excuse me. Okay, we want to move the start time for the June 10th meeting to 7:30 p.m. So an executive session is planned from 5 to 7:30. And then we'll move that. So I do need action.
I move the board, move the start time of the June 10, 2025 regular board meeting from 6 to 7:30 p.m.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Only opposed? The ayes have it. And then we have, it looks like 3 meetings from November 3rd to December 9th. So have we not?
Next page.
Goodness. I can't do all this paper. So we are looking at which of the 3, so choose your favorite 3, where we're looking for as many people as possible to attend. Tuesday, November 4th, Friday, November 7th, Tuesday, December 2nd, and Monday, December 8th. And I haven't looked at these yet, so I don't know the answer to me.
And these were ones we already marked available in the survey tool.
Right. So my preference would be not Friday.
I'm
I don't know
happy
if
to
anyone
not
else-
say, I'm happy to rule out the Friday as well.
Am I hearing any objections to that?
No, I think Friday, taking that off makes sense too. That's also Veterans Day weekend. Lead up to- Well, although I guess Veterans Day itself is.
Okay, so then I would need a motion.
I move the board calendar 3 school improvement plan meetings for fall 2025 on the following dates: Tuesday, November 4th from 1 to 4 p.m., Tuesday, December 2nd from 1 to 4 p.m., Monday, December 8th from 1 to 4 p.m. to be held in the boardroom.
Right.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. And the last one is scheduling our board retreat for the fall. So, I don't know where we want to start with this. September is a busy, busy month.
Remind me, the first day of school. That's when again?
It's August
August.
28th.
August 28th.
August 9th, okay. Do we want to try to do it before the start of school? I know we did that last year. We did the end of August. I'd prefer not to do September, but.
It's a chance of, yeah, I don't know. I might be out of town, but I don't know. As of now, I'm not.
I think we also used it last time as the school board rep onboarding opportunity.
Okay,
if I remember correctly.
a section of it.
No. So it would be good to get it locked in.
So
I'm
that,
fine with August.
it would be best if the student reps, they are late on Wednesdays for most of them. Gibson Neck, not so much. So I don't know if a Tuesday, Wednesday works for anybody in the month of September.
I think I need to hear from our superintendent, like what are the can't do weeks? Because I know as we get ready to launch school and as we start school, so I need to know where we can't look. And for me, I don't think I could commit to anything in August at this point.
Okay.
So now we're too close to that window. We're 3 months away. So now like August is kind of untouchable.
Yeah, late August is going to be hard for me.
September is going to be a real challenge for me. We have a college drop off for my son.
What week?
It is
Late August. Yeah.
let's see. Let me go back to the calendar.
I mean, like what about like the 29th, 30th?
Yeah, I could do late. Yeah, I could do late September like that, 29th through 30th.
Repeat that.
September 29th and 30th.
I can do that as well.
Let me check my work calendar. I can personally do that.
Yeah, I can do that as well.
That actually would be better than late August.
I think our biggest considerations to answer Director Gallander's point is August is a hard month in general because we're kind of slicing ourselves between different trainings, new hire training. And then the first 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks of the school year, just all full out, focus on the launch of school. So end of September is a reasonable time. I don't see any other
Yeah.
major conflicts on those 2 dates that you mentioned.
And for students, if they were to come, that would be some type of excused absence for them, right?
I think you would have to approach it that way if it was during that time versus a Wednesday morning or Wednesday.
Well, the 29th and 30th are a Monday and Tuesday, so.
Yeah, those work. I checked my work calendar. Those work for me too.
Right, but any student part we could schedule at the end of our time because our high schools get out early enough that they could join us for an
True.
hour or two.
Late.
It's very little of school.
Yeah. So am I hearing that those 2 days work for everybody?
I think it's fine for.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
then I would be looking for a motion.
I move to schedule the fall 2025 board retreat on September 29 and September 30th in the boardroom.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. I think that's the easiest I've seen us make a schedule in
Yeah,
forever. And with that, we are adjourned.
Oh.
What?
Just one last topic I'd like to add for consideration
Oh.
for future agenda
Okay.
topics would be grading in more specific detail. So the fact that a 92 or a 91 is an A- in our school district, or a 90 and an A in the Lake Washington School District has a real impact for kids. And even where it's a direct comparison, is an East Lake kid and a Skyline kid takes the same Bellevue College class. They both get a 91 on that class in Bellevue College, and it gets translated to their high school transcript differently.
That doesn't make sense.
So I think we need to have some real serious conversation about the alignment. And I know we heard from our Liberty students about how important that A- was to them. I just think we need to have, I think at this point, we need to lead that conversation because like we're literally putting our kids at a disadvantage, at least when we're right up against the district boundary of a very large, the second largest school district in our state that has a different grading practice that directly impacts kids and college applications.
Great. Thank you. I also said that one of the things I want, and this might be during the board retreat, is a discussion on the evaluation process for staff members across the district and what that looks like. Because I think you know, I have 16 years of experience being here when we implemented the Danielson model, but I recognize that not everybody has that experience, and that might be a good discussion
I'd welcome
for us to have.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, anything else? And with that, we are adjourned.